Chapter 1273. Under the Night Sky. Everyone, please search. Novel. Tang Jing stopped absorbing the power of the stars. The true energy flowing through his meridians was converted from the power of the stars. The red lunar beast also stopped. The father and son looked at each other, their eyes filled with joy. Footsteps sounded behind him. He turned around and saw Li Xiaotian standing behind him. It's the middle of the night. Why are you here? Tang Jing asked in surprise. For the past few days, Li Xiaotian had not been at home. He did not ask too much. After all, Li Xiaotian had his own things to do. Li Xiaotian looked at him deeply and said, I have good news for you. Tang Jing raised his eyebrows and said, Oh, what good news? Haven't you been looking for the leader's whereabouts? I just received accurate news that he has finally appeared in the capital. Li Xiaotian pointed at the ground and said. Tang Jing was not surprised at all. With his understanding of the leader, he would not leave the capital so easily. Then bring me to him. Tang Jing struck while the iron was hot. Li Xiaotian wanted to say something but stopped. Tang Jing frowned and asked, Is there a problem? Li Xiaotian sighed and said, Yes, our people were too late. He was taken away by someone from the government. As of now, I have not found out where he is. The government took him away. Yes, the government has been looking for him. After all, his identity is special and he has the powerful mechanical warriors in his hands. Many people are coveting him. Tang Jing fell into silence. This was not difficult to understand. How do you think he will be treated? Tang Jing asked after a long time. Li Xiaotian seemed to have already thought about this problem and confidently said, He won't have a good end. So many people are eyeing this piece of fatty meat. Since it's already in our mouths, how can we let him go? Even if he doesn't die, he'll still lose a layer of skin. Tang Jing couldn't help but think of that face. His intuition told him that it wasn't that simple, but he couldn't find a reasonable reason. Our pillow talk plan was very successful. Many high-ranking officials have a grudge against him. Since he has fallen into the enemy's hands, there is no way he can escape. Those people are fully aware that if they don't kill the snake, they will be harmed instead. They won't give him a chance to make a comeback. Li Xiaotian said solemnly. Tang Jing stared at Xiaotian, his eyes filled with indescribable confidence. In the end, he chose to believe in Li Xiaotian's judgment. Li Xiaotian's resourcefulness was unparalleled in the world. Indeed, there was no need to doubt her judgment. Then, won't the chief become insignificant? Tang Jing asked. Li Xiaotian nodded and said, Yes. His fall will inevitably lead to the rise of another group of people. Because of the work we did in the early stages, this group of people won't have too much enmity towards us. We can stop for the time being and don't have to worry about enmity from the government. Tang Jing praised Xiaotian and said, Thank you. This is all thanks to you. If it weren't for Li Xiaotian's strategy, Tang Jing wouldn't have been able to do it so easily. Perhaps he would have been badly battered by this matter. His words came from the bottom of his heart. The corners of Li Xiaotian's mouth twitched slightly. She did her best to restrain the joy rippling from her heart. Tang Jing's gaze also became more tender. Tang Jing pretended not to see and patted her shoulder. It's been hard on you these days. You can have a good rest now. Li Xiaotian stubbornly shook her head. It's not hard at all. This is my life. If I have nothing to do, then I'll feel uncomfortable. I heard that you're looking for the whereabouts of the demon race. Perhaps I can help you a bit. Oh. Tang Jing's eyebrows jumped. He had been looking for the demon race for several days, but there had been no news. The demon race's strength is so strong. How could I ignore them? Although their whereabouts are mysterious, the technology of today's society is so advanced that it's still possible to find some clues. Li Xiaotian said with a smile of exultation. This sentence was simple, but Tang Zheng understood that it must have involved a lot of unknown effort. In other words, Li Xiaotian was like a prophet. She knew that Tang Zheng would definitely look for the demon race, so she made preparations beforehand and never gave up on this clue. Without a doubt, of all the people around him, only Li Xiaotian would think of this point. Everyone else's focus was on Tang Zheng, and they practically revolved around him. Li Xiaotian was different. When she was in charge of the Li Palace, she was able to handle all kinds of situations by herself. In terms of strategy, no one else could compare. Tang Zheng was as thin as hair and immediately understood this point. He gave her a grateful look and said, "Then what specific clues do you have?" Qi Yu's whereabouts are extremely mysterious, but his subordinates may not be as cautious as him. Perhaps it could be said that they don't have his strength to completely hide. Recently, our people found the whereabouts of a certain person. Through him, we might be able to find Qi Yu. Who? Saint King. You actually found his whereabouts? Tang Zheng was stunned. He was truly shocked by this news. Saint King was the strongest of the demons that had returned. If not for Qi Yu's sudden appearance, the demons would definitely be led by Saint King. Li Xiaotian dared to track down the whereabouts of Saint King. This was extremely daring, and was in line with her usual style of doing things. Li Xiaotian smiled faintly and said somewhat proudly, "This is the information we obtained after spending a lot of effort and braving great dangers. We don't know what Saint King's goal is, but he really did appear." "Then where is he now?" Tang Zheng asked. "The 100,000 mountains." "Ha! Why did he go to the 100,000 mountains?" Tang Zheng was confused. There were no more monsters in the 100,000 mountains, and there was no formation to protect it. It was simply an abandoned place. What other secrets were there worth exploring? Li Xiaotian shook her head. "We don't know exactly what he went to do, but he did appear in the 100,000 mountains." Tang Zheng frowned tightly. Qi Yu was very smart and would not do useless work. He must have a motive for sending his trusted general to the 100,000 mountains. Is he alone? No, he still has subordinates. He's so mysterious. He definitely won't do anything good. Li Xiaotian asserted. Then in order to find Qi Yu, don't I have to go to the 100,000 mountains again? Tang Zheng was conflicted. The 100,000 mountains was very important to him. The witch clan and Xiao Bai both came from the 100,000 mountains. He had entered and left the 100,000 mountains several times, harvesting many things and obtaining many fortuitous encounters. The most important thing was that there was a Buzhou mountain in the 100,000 mountains. This was the place that was most closely connected to the sky beyond heaven. Back then, when the heaven stairway was still around, the two worlds were connected at the Buzhou mountain. This meant that the peak of the Buzhou mountain was the weakest point of the separation between the two worlds. Now, even other places could use the mountain river blood sacrifice formation to summon back the devil clan. In other words, the spatial isolation of other places had become weaker. Didn't that mean that the isolation of the peak of the Buzhou mountain was even weaker? At the thought of this, his heart trembled. Could it be that the devil clan had also discovered this point, which was why they had traveled thousands of miles to the 100,000 mountains? He shook his head. He could not figure out the reason, but one thing was certain. It was necessary to go to the 100,000 mountains. Whether it was to find Qi Yu or to explore the secret of the separation between the two worlds. Li Xiaotian had already guessed his thoughts. She asked tentatively, "Are we going to the 100,000 mountains?" Tang Zheng stared at her with a burning gaze and corrected her, "I'm going." "I'll go too. I have the strength to protect myself." Li Xiaotian volunteered. Looking at her perseverance, Tang Jing could not help but recall the time with her in the 100,000 mountains. At that time, she was still the holy maiden of Li Palace, cunning and suspicious, completely unfathomable. However, Tang Jing had accidentally snatched away the heaven-shocking bow and shooting sun arrows, causing her to fly into a rage. Facing Tang Jing's fiery gaze, Li Xiaotian did not back down at all. She was very clear about her identity, or rather, her awkwardness. The other women were more or less related to Tang Jing, but she was the only one who was more awkward. Furthermore, the other few people were very repulsive to her, which made her feel even more threatened. This time, she was the one who discovered the information, so she had to seize this opportunity to travel with Tang Jing. How could she miss such a good opportunity? Alright, you can travel with me, but this trip is dangerous and unpredictable. You have to listen to my orders. Tang Jing compromised. Li Xiaotian had done so much for him, so he couldn't reject her in such a cold-blooded manner. Moreover, he now believed that he had the ability to protect her. At most, he would take her into the Sumra world, and everything would be fine. Seeing that his perseverance had borne fruit, Li Xiaotian was beaming with joy, and the corner of his mouth revealed a smile that made one's heart tremble. Her charming techniques had unknowingly become more and more profound, and she truly had the ability to captivate souls. In addition, we have already completed the other matter you instructed us to do last time. However, the effect does not seem to be very good. Li Xiaotian changed the topic and said worriedly. Tang Jing curiously waited for her to continue. The former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor are gathering pure yang energy from the various life totems in an attempt to condense the soul of the Golden Crow. We have spread this news, and I believe that the demon clan already knows about it. Li Xiaotian paused for a moment, as if she was puzzled, and said resentfully, however, the demon clan did not make a move, nor did they stop the actions of the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor. In addition, according to the location you provided, we continued to investigate and did find several life totems. Unfortunately, the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor have already arrived and gathered pure yang energy. We have rushed to nothing. Tang Jing revealed a disappointed expression and let out a long sigh. Originally, he had hoped that the demon clan would attack the former subordinates of the Yellow Emperor after they found out about this, and thus prevent them from condensing the soul of the Golden Crow. Now, this wonderful plan of a third party benefiting from the fight between the Sandpiper and the clan did not work. He had thought too simply of these two forces. Man proposes, God disposes. Don't worry too much. Tang Jing comforted, you missed this great opportunity. If the soul of the Golden Crow is really condensed, then he will have to suffer. Chapter 1274. Early in the morning, the villa was in an uproar. It was all because Tang Jing had decided to go to the 100,000 mountains with Li Xiaotian. When the others heard this, they were very agitated and looked at Li Xiaotian indignantly. Although they did not say much, the meaning was very clear. Why did she have to go and not others? Tang Jing had a headache. He scratched his head in distress and tried his best to persuade her. However, when women were unreasonable, they would not listen to anything. Especially when there were several women, it was really a big show. The so-called happiness of having multiple partners was not so easy to enjoy. Li Xiaotian did not interrupt and sat quietly at the side as if it had nothing to do with him. Yi Dingdang had a fiery temper. Like setting off firecrackers, she said with a crackling sound, "Why can she go but we can't?" The others nodded in agreement. This is not fair. Fang Shishir said faintly as she shared a common enemy. Tang Jing did not know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at this group of people and explained, "This time I am going on official business to find the whereabouts of the Devil Clan." Why would so many people go? It's not like it's a tour. Moreover, this trip is extremely dangerous. If there are too many people, it will be more restrictive. We also have the power to protect ourselves. Moreover, many of us have been to the 100,000 mountains before and have rich experience. There will not be any danger. Fang Shishir was encouraged by Yi Dingdang and argued. Yi Dingdang agreed, right, we are not people without the strength to truss up a chicken, what are we afraid of? We can even help. Dingdang, you have just recovered and must rest at home. So, no matter how much you shout, you can't go this time. Tang Zheng stared at the agitated Yi Dingdang and said sternly. Yi Dingdang pouted and said, if I don't go, then I won't go. But others can go, such as Shishir. Tang Zheng still shook his head. Shishir can't. Her trip to the heavenly gate has just ended. She also needs to rest at home. What about Fu Yao? Yi Dingdang turned her eyes and pointed at Empyrean Fairy. Unexpectedly, the Empyrean Fairy did not cooperate at all. She shook her head and said, I'm not going. The world was in chaos. She already had a strong sense of crisis, so she decided to cultivate at home. This was the most important thing. Yi Dingdang rolled her eyes helplessly. She couldn't do anything to the Empyrean Fairy. Her gaze turned and landed on Wu and Lu Qingmei. As for Princess Anne, she automatically filtered it out. Princess Anne was an unstable factor. If she was allowed to travel with Tang Jing, it would be like sending a lamb to a tiger's den. After all, everyone knew that Princess Anne had Sima Zhao's heart. It was impossible to create an opportunity for her to be alone with Tang Jing. Anne wanted to volunteer, but her status as a princess did not have much use in this big family. In other words, she did not have much deterrence. In addition, there were more and more business exchanges with foreign countries. And also participated and assisted Mu Hongyan. She really could not leave. Seeing Yi Dingdang's gaze sweep over them, Wu and Lu Qingmei raised their heads at the same time. Wu and Li Xiaotian had a very special relationship. They were even sworn enemies in the beginning. Especially the martial organization and Li Palace had a very deep relationship. With these two by his side, Tang Zheng felt that he did not need to do anything else. Perhaps the two of them would ignite a barrel of gunpowder. As for Lu Qingmei, Tang Zheng moved his head and looked at her with a gentle gaze. Lu Qingmei was very understanding. She had changed from a nice beauty to a caring big sister. She had no regrets and did not have many requests. Thinking of this, Tang Zheng felt a little ashamed. Lu Qingmei was the daughter of a large family. Her father was a governor. She had always been neglected by him, but she had no complaints. Immediately, a strong sense of guilt welled up in his heart. He said, Sister Mei will go with us. Her relationship with Lu Qingmei was becoming more and more public. Although it was not publicly announced, everyone was well aware of it. Seeing him directly call her Sister Mei, the others were not surprised. They were only surprised by his choice. Lu Qingmei also looked at Tang Zheng in astonishment. She rarely carried out missions with Tang Zheng. She mostly assisted Mu Hongyan in dealing with business matters. Immediately, she felt flattered. However, looking at the complicated gazes of the others, she was too embarrassed to show it. But her eyes had already betrayed her. Tang Zheng understood her eager eyes. He smiled at her and said, the people here have more or less been to the 100,000 mountains. Sister Mei has not been there. She has been working very hard. This time, she will go out with me to get some fresh air. Since he said so, the others naturally would not refute. In fact, Yi Dingdang and the others wanted to go with Wu. They could balance Li Xiaotian, but it was better than nothing. It was better than letting the two of them go alone. Lu Qingmei asked excitedly, do I need to prepare anything? Do you want to book a plane ticket? Tang Jing smiled and said, I will take care of everything. Then, he looked at the others and gave them a good warning. With the Empyrean Fairy at home and Tian Chanzi supporting them, there would not be any problems. Since he returned from the gate of heaven, Tian Chanzi had been in seclusion. It seemed that he felt the pressure from Tang Jing. Tian Chanzi decided to work hard and threatened to greatly improve his cultivation, leaving Tang Jing a few streets behind. Several people came to the courtyard to see him off. Tang Jing used his mind and the somersault cloud appeared out of thin air in the courtyard. It was the first time for the others to see the somersault cloud. They widened their eyes in surprise and asked all at once. "This is my new means of transportation. It's called the somersault cloud," Tang Jing introduced. "Is this really a cloud?" The others looked at it as if they were looking at a mirror. If it was a magic weapon, they would not be surprised. But this was clearly a white cloud. Empyrean Fairy could not hide her surprise and asked, "When did you get the somersault cloud?" "This is related to the Dragon Clan," Tang Jing said simply and did not explain further. "The two of you can stand on it." Li Xiaotian and Lu Qingmei looked at each other. Li Xiaotian could not wait to jump on it. It was very steady as if he was stepping on flat ground. Lu Qingmei carefully walked up. Her cheeks were red and she was extremely excited. Her eyes were rolling around as she continuously sized up the somersault cloud. Tang Jing flew up the somersault cloud and waved to everyone, saying, "Let's go." Whoosh! The somersault cloud rose into the air and flew into the sky. In the eyes of others, this was just an ordinary cloud. Because of the lingering clouds, the two people's figures were basically covered. Even with the government's precision equipment, it was difficult to discover the mystery of this white cloud. Everyone retracted their gaze and the few women looked at each other. Yi Dingdang said, "Wu, Shishir, come to my room. I have something to tell you." Wu looked at her deeply and nodded. She then entered her room with Fang Shishir. Empyrean Fairy did not care about these things and directly returned to her room to cultivate. Princess and curled her lips. She had no choice but to go to the company with Mu Hongyan. Three women were a drama. The three women sat together and looked at each other. Yi Dingdang took a deep breath and took the lead to break the silence. "I will speak first. Everyone has seen today's situation. What are your thoughts?" Wu Gujing looked at her without any ripples. She did not know what she was selling. Fang Shishir knew that Yi Dingdang was strange and had many ideas. For her to be so serious, there must be a hidden meaning. She said, "Everyone is not an outsider. You should get straight to the point." Yi Dingdang took a deep breath and said, "All right, then I will get straight to the point. Everyone's relationship with Tang Jing, I don't need to repeat it, right?" With that said, Fang Shishir and Wu both sat up straight at the same time. Fang Shishir's face flushed red and said coquettishly, "Dingdang, why are you saying this?" Yi Dingdang seemed to have thrown caution to the wind and said, "Shishir, don't try to hide it. Everyone is not an outsider. Everyone's relationship with Tang Jing is obvious. It's just that no one has pointed it out." Wu looked at Yi Dingdang flabbergasted. She seemed to be shocked by her actions. However, she was after all a person who had seen the world. She did not panic. Instead, she looked at her with interest, waiting for her to continue. "Let me ask you a question. Will you leave him?" Yi Dingdang stared at the two and asked. Wu and Fang Shishir looked at each other and shook their heads. No. She was also a straightforward person. She was not inferior to Yi Dingdang. She was just a little less strange. Since the other party had pointed it out, she naturally would not be overly sentimental. "What about you, Shishir?" Yi Dingdang asked. Fang Shishir hesitated for a moment before firmly shaking her head. She had experienced so much with Tang Jing. No matter how difficult it was, she would not leave him. Yi Dingdang shrugged her shoulders and spread out her hands and said, "Isn't that it? I will not leave him either." After pausing for a moment, she asked again, then do you know how many women he has relations with? Or is she related to anyone else in this house? Lu Qingmei, Teacher Lu. Wu and Fang Shishir said in unison. Yi Dingdang nodded and sighed, that's right. It seems that everyone is very smart. I never thought that Teacher Lu would have an affair with him. His legs are really long. That year in school, we did not even notice. He is just a playboy. Fang Shishir said with hatred. She was not angry, but her heart was a little sour. Yi Dingdang emphasized, of course he is a playboy. But that does not mean that we like him. Gold is not pure, and no one is perfect. His other strengths are enough to cover up this weakness. Wu calmly said, I don't care what his strengths and weaknesses are. I like him as a person. That is enough. Yi Dingdang and Fang Shishir looked at each other in shock. They never thought that Wu, who was not good with words, would say such words. These words seemed simple, but it actually contained her deep feelings for Tang Jing. Hang, this playboy, what virtue and ability does he have to have so many beauties like him? He still dares to fool around. I really want to break his third leg. Yi Dingdang faintly said as she curled her lips. Fang Shishir awkwardly smiled and urged, Dingdang, why did you call us here? Quickly say it. Since we already know that he is a playboy, then we must guard against him being a playboy and hooking up with other women. In the past, you and I have always been doing this. Now it seems that just the two of us are too weak. We must unite all the forces that can be united and form an alliance. Chapter 1275. Marshall looked at Yi Dingdang in astonishment. Her mind raced and after a moment of silence, she asked, what do you want me to do? She already understood Yi Dingdang's thoughts and naturally reached a tacit understanding with him. Yi Dingdang beamed with joy and said, I knew I found the right person. I really didn't misjudge you. Saying that, he heavily patted Marshall's shoulder. Then, she impatiently said, we must guard to the death so that the other women have no place to attack. This way, we can ensure that no one else enters. Marshall remained calm and asked, can you control him? Yi Dingdang raised his neck and proudly said, of course I can control him. He doesn't have 3 heads and 6 arms. What can't I control? Marshall chuckled and did not say a word. However, the meaning was clear. She did not believe these bold words. Yi Dingdang felt weak in his heart. He also understood that these words were pleasant to hear. In reality, the building and the sky collapsed without a single attack. The 3 of us working together can't even take care of him. Yi Dingdang said, unwilling to admit defeat. His legs are on his body. Moreover, our strength can't compare to his. Do you think we can catch up to him? Marshall asked. Yi Dingdang's face was resentful. His bold words just now had suffered a huge blow. He faintly said, then what can you do? When we deal with the enemy, we first have to figure out who the enemy is and what kind of strength they have. Only then can we formulate the corresponding countermeasures. This is the art of war. Similarly, we can also deal with him in the same way. He is not the enemy. Fang Shishir reminded in a low voice. Yi Dingdang waved his hand and said, of course he is not the enemy. This sounds interesting. Continue speaking. Marshall had rich battle experience and spoke logically. We can't control Tang Jing, but we can control those women so that they can't get close to him. Yi Dingdang's eyes lit up. She clapped her hands in agreement. Yes, you're absolutely right. This is the best way to contain them from the source. It's more effective. Marshall seemed to have been affected by Yi Dingdang's emotions, as he analyzed incessantly, but before we do this, we must distinguish clearly, those people are our competitors, we need to be on guard against them. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Of course, it's the woman in our villa. Fang Shishir nodded in agreement. Wu also nodded in agreement and said, "That's right, then we have to distinguish who is our competitor in this villa. After all, there are so many people." Princess Anne. Yi Dingdang blurted out. Li Xiaotian. Marshall added. Teacher Liu. As Fang Shishir spoke, she suddenly shook her head. Teacher Liu and Tang Jing are already together. It will be difficult to separate them. Then we'll ignore Lu Laoshi for the time being. Yi Dingdang also understood the difficulty of this matter, so she compromised. Where are the others? Wu asked. Who else is there? Mu Hongyan, Tang Linger, and Fu Yao. Fang Shishir corrected her and said, Sister Mu and Tang Jing wouldn't be related, right? This. Marshall and Yi Dingdang fell into a dilemma. Yi Dingdang recalled bits and pieces of these two people, but it seemed that they did not have any intimate interactions. The most important thing was that the difference between the two was too great. After all, Mu Hongyan was Nana's mother. If Tang Jing heard this analysis, he would definitely cry out in relief. It was fortunate that he acted in secret. Otherwise, if this matter was dug up, it would definitely be explosive news. Linger shouldn't be, right? After all, Tang Jing has always treated her as a little sister. Fang Shishir said again. That might not be the case. What is Linger? She is 100-year-old ginseng. She also treats Tang Jing as her master. Although they call each other brother and sister, Linger worships him. What if she takes the initiative to give herself to him? Yi Dingdang analyzed. Fang Shishir smiled coquettishly and said, Don't shoot your mouth off. Linger is such a pure girl. Why are you talking about her like that? Yi Dingdang was also a little embarrassed. She curled her lips and explained, Aren't I just saying the worst result? Then only Fu Yao is left. I heard that when you were in the gate of heaven, the Emperor of Heaven insisted on letting Tang Jing and Fu Yao get married. Regarding this matter, Wu Lu had heard of it, but he had never confirmed it. Yes, of course there is such a thing. Yi Dingdang said with a smile of exultation, You don't know how bad the Emperor of Heaven is. He actually randomly matched a couple and even wanted to betroth his own woman to Tang Jing. This is too bad. There is no first-come first-served meaning at all. He is the Emperor of Heaven. His strength is high, so why would he care about the so-called first-come first-served? Wu Lu shrugged, as if she understood the Emperor of Heaven's actions very well. Didn't Tang Jing sternly refuse? Fang Shishir defended Tang Jing. What if the Emperor of Heaven insists on doing things his own way? What is done cannot be undone. What can he do? The Emperor of Heaven wouldn't be so unreasonable, right? Fang Shishir said nervously. Yi Dingdang laughed dryly, clearly not believing the Emperor of Heaven's way of doing things. Since that is the case, then Fu Yao cannot be let off. From now on, we must strictly guard against her. Wu Yigui said decisively. Yi Dingdang nodded in agreement. What about the others? Li Xiaotian and Princess Anne are the key personnel to keep an eye on. We absolutely cannot let them succeed. Wu Lu warned. In addition, Ling Er and Mu Hongyan can be temporarily put aside. After all, there are no signs that there is a trend in that direction. Alright, let's first concentrate our firepower and guard against these three people. Yi Dingdang and Fang Shishir looked at each other and agreed to this plan. Now let's discuss how to guard against them. Don't they have 3 people? We also happen to have 3 people. Once they have the chance to be alone with Tang Jing, we must insert ourselves and make it impossible for them to succeed. Yi Dingdang nodded approvingly, looking at Wu Yigui with a complicated gaze. She had always thought that Wu Yigui was not good at speaking and was simple-minded, but now it seemed that it was not as simple as she thought. They were all astute people. There is another method. I saw it on the internet. Fong Shishir suddenly said, her voice gradually becoming softer like a mosquito. Shishir, speak louder. There are only a few of us and no one is eavesdropping. What are you afraid of? Quickly tell us what method it is. Fong Shishir's face flushed red as if she was drunk. She stammered, doesn't the internet say that if a man is squeezed dry, he will not have the heart to spend? Yi Dingdang and Wu Yigui were shocked. Soon after, Yi Dingdang clapped her hands and laughed. Ha ha ha, Shishir, when did you become so bad? You actually thought of this method. Fong Shishir wished she could find a hole to hide in. She hung her head and said, I didn't want to say it but you forced me to. Now you are laughing at me. Yi Dingdang proudly hugged Fong Shishir's shoulder and mischievously smiled. When did I laugh at you? I was just shocked by this method. I never thought you would think of this method. Then how about this method? Of course this is good. Yi Dingdang's mouth twitched. She pretended to be carefree and said, I will leave this difficult task to you. When he comes back, you can squeeze him dry. Fong Shishir was greatly embarrassed and quickly broke free from her evil clutches. She exhaled and said, you do it yourself. I'm not going. Is that so? When the time comes, don't blame me for not being a friend and not asking you to share. Yi Dingdang pretended to be heroic and said. With how thick-skinned she was, how could Fong Shishir be her opponent? Her face and ears turned red as she panted from her words. Wu coughed and said, the method has been set. Then we will divide the work and determine our own goals. The few of them laughed and laughed. Tang Zhang and his group had already flown to the sky above Dianan. The somersault cloud was extremely fast, much faster than the flying speed of the war spirit sword. When Tang Zhang once again came to this land in Dianan, countless familiar images appeared in his mind. Li Xiaotian had lost his memory and did not have any sense of familiarity with the 10,000 mountains. He only looked at the boundless mountains and his shock was beyond words. Lu Qingmei did not dare to open her eyes at first. Only after flying for a long distance did she muster up the courage to open her eyes. However, her hands were firmly holding on to Tang Zhang's sleeves. Looking down at the vast forest below, Lu Qingmei was also shocked by this scene and was speechless for a long time. Tang Zhang briefly introduced the 10,000 mountains and ordered the somersault cloud to fly downwards. They did not go to Dianan City. That was the Long family's territory. He did not want to have too much to do with the Long family, let alone have any conflicts. However, he did not know that Long Xianyuan had already been taken in by Ji Wuxiang. The entire Dianan had become Ji Wuxiang's territory. Ever since the formation of the 10,000 mountains was broken, humans had slowly begun to set foot in this area. Especially the official forces, who were advancing step by step, seemed to want to understand the mysterious mysteries of the 10,000 mountains. However, the 10,000 mountains was vast, and the officials' actions were slow, and they had been wandering around the periphery. Looking down from the sky, one could clearly see that a large area of forest around the 10,000 mountains had been cut down, revealing a yellow-brown bare land, just like a bald man. The roar of helicopters lingered in the sky, and several helicopters were patrolling. Tang Zhang looked at this scene in surprise. He did not expect the officials to mobilize so many people. Were they going to flatten the 10,000 mountains? Overestimating yourself. He pondered for a moment and made a judgment. Will they find us? Lu Qingmei asked worriedly. Don't worry, we will directly enter the core area of the 10,000 mountains. Tang Zhang comforted her and rode the somersault cloud. With a whoosh, they swept across the sky and flew away from the busy machines. From afar, he saw the tribe of the Witch clan. After several great battles, the huge stronghold was already in ruins. Look, there are people. Li Xiaotian pointed to the ruins of the tribal square and said. Back then, the four symbols venerables stood in the square. Now, it was only a ruin, but many people were studying something in the square. The officials had arrived at the tribe before, so they were very clear about the situation of the tribe. Now that they had come here again, they definitely wanted to find something. However, the witch clan had already left, so this tribe had no meaning. No matter how much they studied, they would not gain anything. Tang Jing did not take it to heart and directly flew over. Not long after, he saw a familiar scene. The witch clan's holy land. This was the place where Xiao Bai was born. It could be considered the core area of the 10,000 mountains, and there were no signs of machines. Chapter 1276. The witch clan's holy land was a mountain peak. It was not steep and had lush vegetation. In the past, other than plants, the holy land was dead silent. There were no animals, but now, it was thriving and full of life. The holy land was a silent volcano, and the cave at the top of the mountain was particularly eye-catching. Xiao Bai had descended from there. Tang Zheng locked onto the cave entrance at a glance. He happened to walk past the cave entrance and walked straight in. There's someone. Li Xiaotian and Lu Qingmei also frowned at the same time. They asked with rapt attention, "Who is it?" Tang Jing shook his head. The distance was too far. Was Chu the Saint King or someone else? What should we do? Tang Jing pondered for a moment, then said, "Since we're here, let's take things as they come. Of course, we should chase after them." With that, the somersault cloud landed on the mountain top with a whoosh. The three of them jumped off the somersault cloud and looked around vigilantly. There was no movement at all. Other than the sound of insects, there was nothing else. The other party seems to be alone. Li Xiaotian said suspiciously. Tang Jing did not say a word and walked into the cave with large strides. The other two followed behind him and paid 120% attention. The familiar scenes in the cave entered his eyes one by one, as if he had returned to a familiar moment. That time, he had entered the cave alone, filled with anxiety and anticipation. If Xiao Bai was awake, he would definitely like the feeling of returning to his hometown. Xiao Bai was sleeping soundly at home, so naturally, it was because of this scene. The walls of the cave were suffused with a red light, illuminating the path ahead. They meandered down and entered the depths of the mountain, as if they were going straight to the core of the earth. Li Xiaotian and Lu Qingmei were new here. They were like curious babies, constantly looking around. A hot feeling gradually assaulted them, and the air was filled with the smell of heat. Tang Zhang's heart tightened. Wasn't the magma at the bottom of the volcano swallowed up by Xiao Bai? Why is there a heat wave? He suppressed the misgivings in his heart and used his eyes to signal the other two to be careful. After advancing for a long distance, the heat wave hit them in the face. It was almost unbearable, and even their breaths carried a scalding smell. This heat seems to be even more terrifying than the last time I came. Tang Jing, who was immune to both heat and cold, actually felt the heat, which was enough to prove its power. Li Xiaotian and Lu Qingmei's foreheads were already covered in sweat, and their breathing had also become rapid. Almost there. Tang Jing reminded them, and the three of them immediately slowed down their pace. While resisting the erosion of the heat with difficulty, they also paid attention to the situation in front of them. Boom! With a loud bang, the earth shook and the mountains shook. The three of them staggered and almost fell to the ground. What's wrong? Lu Qingmei asked in a panic. Tang Zhang's expression suddenly changed. The cave was still shaking as if it was about to collapse. Don't worry, I'm here. He was even more anxious to know what was going on, so he quickened his pace. The other two adapted to the shaking, stabilized their bodies, and quickly rushed deeper into the cave. A fiery red light came from the depths of the cave, and the heat wave hit them in the face. The air seemed to be boiling, and the blood seemed to be evaporating from the blood vessels. However, in the red light that covered the sky and earth, they also saw the scene in front of them. Dozens of people stood in the narrow space, and it seemed very crowded. They were mumbling something, as if they were not afraid of the overflowing heat wave. The magma was at their feet, constantly rolling and bubbling, and could soar into the sky at any time. Why is there magma again? Tang Jing clearly remembered that the magma was sucked into Xiao Bai's stomach. He shook his head and did not investigate, but stared straight at this group of people. Demons. Their identity was unquestionable. Li Palace's information was accurate. The demons were indeed active in the 100,000 mountains, and Saint King was not the only one. He searched for Saint King's figure in the crowd, but did not find him. Could it be that Saint King is somewhere else? He began to feel suspicious. No matter where Saint King is, the demons must be up to something by stirring up trouble here. Just what are they doing? Splash! A demon jumped into the rolling magma, and before he could even let out a scream, he was turned into nothingness. This scene scared the three so much that their backs were drenched in cold sweat. What was going on? Boom! With a loud sound, a stream of magma soared into the sky, directly colliding with the dome above their heads and creating a large crater. Their feet shook violently, and the three hurriedly stabilized their bodies. Ignoring the shock in their hearts, they looked up and saw that there were already 2 craters in the dome. Their hearts trembled at the same time as they remembered the loud sound just now. Could it be that someone had jumped into the magma, and then caused this series of reactions? What was puzzling was that the demons sacrificed themselves. What was the purpose of this? The three looked at each other, at a loss. Splash! Another person jumped into the magma, and the magma soared into the sky again. The earth shook, and rocks fell from the inner walls. Their scheme is definitely not small. We must stop them. Li Xiaotian's eyes flashed coldly, and said first. Tang Jing nodded in agreement and said, I'll go stop them. He laughed bitterly in his heart. He did not think that he would save the demons and prevent them from dying. Whoosh! When he jumped down from a high place, the demons also discovered their whereabouts, and shouted one after another, Stop them, kill them without mercy. Tang Jing snorted, and grabbed a demon's shoulder, and threw him into the sky. However, the nearby demons had already roared and rushed up. I'm saving you. You really don't know what's good for you. Tang Jing said hatefully. Who wants you to save us? The rest of you, hurry up and jump in. A demon yelled loudly, and as soon as his voice fell, several demons jumped into the lava one after another. Immediately, a few more streams of lava soared into the sky, crashing into the dome. The earth shook even more violently, and the cave seemed like it would collapse at any time. Tang Jing wanted to save people, but the demons wanted to die, so how could it be so easy? So, after he grabbed a few demons, several more demons jumped into the magma. He had no way to save them. Li Xiaotian stared at the demons, and with a flash of inspiration, shouted, As long as we don't let the demons jump into the magma, everything will be fine. Force them back. With her reminder, Tang Jing seemed to wake up from a dream, and joy appeared in his eyes. The demons wanted to jump into the magma. As long as he did not let them succeed, their life and death had nothing to do with him. Thus, Tang Jing began to use his killing move. He drew his bow, and with a whoosh, the shooting sun arrow flew out, directly piercing a demon that tried to jump into the magma. Paw! The other party fell on the edge of the magma, and was only a step away from the magma. He could only despair, his pupils dilated, and there was no more vitality. Everyone jump in. Seeing this, the demons knew that their plan would be completely ruined, and urged in a flustered and exasperated manner. Plop, magma splashed up like flowers. These demons were not afraid of death at all, as if they were unafraid of death. Run faster, or my shooting sun arrow is faster. Tang Zheng was anxious. With a thought, the speed of the shooting sun arrow increased greatly, and with only an afterimage, it directly pierced through a few demons, preventing them from jumping into the magma. However, this was a drop in the bucket. Most of the demons jumped into the magma. Immediately, the earth shook, and dozens of magma soared into the sky, hitting the dome and leaving holes. Swish! A strange red light sprinkled down from the dome, enveloping everyone. Ah! Lu Qingmei and Li Xiaotian cried out in alarm at the same time. The skin on their faces seemed to be on fire, about to ignite. There's something wrong with this light. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright. With a wave of his hand, the sacred armor shield flew out, covering the two like a large umbrella. Boom! 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 The earth shook incessantly, and the magma boiled. The rocks above their heads fell one by one, smashing on the sacred armor shield. This place is going to collapse. Li Xiaotian shouted. Tang Zheng's face was solemn. He also realized this point. Moreover, from the boiling magma, he seemed to understand a little bit of the demon's intention. The demons seemed to want to awaken this volcano. This volcano had been dormant for countless years. What was the use of awakening it? What benefits would it bring to the demons? Tang Zheng could not guess, but it was definitely of great use to the demons. Otherwise, the demons would not have sacrificed so much. Damned demons, they would rather sacrifice their own lives to awaken the volcano. The eruption of the volcano will be an incalculable disaster for the 100,000 mountains. He had never seen a volcano erupt with his own eyes, but he could guess its dangers. Furthermore, this volcano was probably different from the other volcanoes, and its power could not be compared to the other volcanoes. The vegetation in the 100,000 mountains was lush and the scenery was beautiful. Although there was a dangerous place like the prehistoric heavenly tomb, most of it still looked like a primitive forest. If it was destroyed by the volcano, it would definitely be an ecological disaster. Tang Zheng was filled with regret. Why didn't he arrive a step earlier? That way, he could have seen through the demon's scheme and avoided all of this. There were no ifs in this world, and there was no medicine for regret. He suppressed all sorts of complicated thoughts in time. The demons were all dead, and the volcanic eruption could not be reversed. The only thing he could do was to leave this place first and avoid being affected by the impact. Let's go! Tang Zheng shouted, holding on to their hands, one on the left and one on the right, allowing the sacred armor shield to float above their heads, blocking the falling rocks. Crash! The magma rushed up like a flood, rushing towards them along the cave. The cliff was also melted, joining the army of magma. In an instant, the cave was completely engulfed by the magma, and surged towards the three of them. The magma was like a huge wave, constantly smashing against the ground, destroying everything in its path. The three of them were truly shocked when they saw this scene at close range. Especially the monstrous heat wave, it was as if it wanted to evaporate all the water on their bodies and turn them into mummies. The magma was getting closer and closer. Although their speed was fast, the road was winding and the mountains were shaking. Huge rocks fell from the sky like a torrential rain. Boom! With a loud sound, the area in front of them collapsed, blocking their path. Chapter 1277. Boulders blocked the exit, causing the air to heat up. Sun shooting arrow, break! Tang Zheng roared. The sun shooting arrow pierced through the air and hit the boulder. With a loud boom, rocks flew everywhere. The boulder shattered into small stones. The exit was clear again. Somersault cloud. He was holding the two of them, so his speed was too slow. The lava was about to catch up, so he could only use the somersault cloud. However, he did not know how fast the somersault cloud was in this narrow space. The three of them jumped onto the somersault cloud. Whoosh! The wind whistled past their ears, causing their cheeks to burn with pain. The somersault cloud's speed was not restricted by the narrow space. It was very agile, automatically turning here and there to avoid falling rocks. We've reached the cave entrance. Li Xiaotian pointed at the light in front of them and shouted in surprise. As soon as he finished speaking, the somersault cloud rushed out of the cave entrance and flew high into the sky. This time, he could not care about shocking the world or exposing his identity. Boom! An even more intense sound shook the heavens and the earth. A fiery light lit up at the top of the Holy Land, instantly dyeing the entire mountain red. A volcanic eruption. Fiery red lava broke out of its shell, breaking through the surface of the mountain and rushing into the sky. Immediately, a scene of the end of the world unfolded before their eyes. The lava was like a pillar of water, reaching hundreds of meters into the sky. At the same time, a crack appeared in the Holy Land. It was like a hole in a person's skin, and this hole was rapidly spreading down the mountain. Crack! Crack! The surface of the ground cracked open. The volcanic eruption had caused an earthquake. The somersault cloud had already carried the three of them far away, but they could still clearly feel the destructive power. The three of them looked at each other, their faces pale. They could see the worry in each other's eyes. This scene was worse than they had expected. Whether it was the earthquake or the giant pillar of lava that was still continuously sending lava into the sky, it gave them a suffocating feeling of death. What do we do? Lu Qingmei anxiously asked. Tang Zheng's face was gloomy, and he was speechless. After pondering for a long time, he said, "Let's wait and see. The demon race won't simply let the volcano erupt. They definitely have other plans." Li Xiaotian agreed, "Yes, the demon race is very secretive. They won't do things that harm others without benefiting themselves. They will definitely benefit from it, but we can't see it yet. Saint King hasn't appeared yet. He must still be hiding somewhere in the 100,000 mountains. Let's wait quietly." Tang Zheng made his decision. He activated the somersault cloud and hid in another huge white cloud. He hid his tracks and looked down from above. The aftershocks of the earth continued and had already spread to the area outside the 100,000 mountains. Fortunately, the Holy Land was located in the core area of the 100,000 mountains. It was deserted and far enough from the city. Therefore, when the earthquake waves spread beyond the 100,000 mountains, it did not cause very tragic consequences. Dianand, the city adjacent to the 100,000 mountains, also shook a few times. Although it was not as strong as the core area, it still caused quite a bit of panic. In the past few years, the continent had not been peaceful. Earthquakes would occur not long after. People's nerves had been greatly trained. Otherwise, the panic caused by such a situation would be even greater. The city was in a mess. People walked to the streets and looked up. Their attention was immediately attracted by another scene. In the direction of the 100,000 mountains, hundreds of meters high in the sky, a fiery red magma was suspended in midair. This scene was even more shocking than the earthquake. People seemed to have been immobilized. They stared at this scene with their mouths agape. The volcano has erupted. No one knew who shouted, but the crowd was boiling. The streets were even more chaotic. The shouts of the crowd and the sound of car horns increased. "Look, look!" Someone pointed into the distance and shouted. People stopped and looked into the distance. The magma suspended in midair quickly fell down. The fiery red light dyed half the sky red. A rumbling sound came from afar. This was the sound of magma falling and smashing into the ground. In the Holy Land, everything changed again. The magma fell from a height of hundreds of meters, smashing many large pits on the ground. It was riddled with holes, like the surface of the moon. All the trees were burning, and smoke and dust filled the sky. The magma gathered together, forming a river that meandered forward. With the Holy Land as the center, it flowed in all directions. As for the mountain peak of the Holy Land, it had been completely flattened by the falling magma. Looking at this scene up close, the shock in their hearts could be imagined. Tang Zheng and the other two only had the loud sound of the magma hitting the ground in their hearts. The corners of their mouths twitched slightly with the sound of the impact. The 100,000 mountains has been completely destroyed. After a long time, Tang Jing sighed. Li Xiaotian pointed in the direction of the periphery of the 100,000 mountains and said, "Look over there." The officials seemed to have been affected. Looking over, as expected, the area had turned into a mess. Although they were not affected by the magma, they did not escape the power of the earthquake. Cracks of various sizes spread from the Holy Land to the edge of the 100,000 mountains, and happened to affect the official area. Those tall construction machines and various projects collapsed one after another, and there were heavy casualties. Tang Jing shook his head and sighed. The 100,000 mountains is not a place they should have come to. Why pay the price of these casualties? He could guess a thing or two about those people's thoughts. They must be jealous of the various secrets in the 100,000 mountains and wanted to investigate them. However, the strength of mortals was limited, and they often overreached themselves. Such a big commotion in the 100,000 mountains will definitely attract the attention of all parties. Do you think the Yellow Emperor's old subordinates will come? And what about Ji Wuxiang? Li Xiaotian asked curiously. Tang Zheng's eyes flickered. After pondering for a long time, he said, "I don't know. The whereabouts of these two forces are unpredictable. It's hard to guess." There was another sentence he did not say. When the dragon slayers came to this world, they must be looking for the whereabouts of the dragon clan. If the dragon slayers heard the news and came to the 100,000 mountains, it would definitely be a huge threat to him. Of course, this was just his worry. It might not become reality. Why haven't we seen Saint King's traces yet? They kept searching for suspicious people, but found no new people around the Holy Land. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and comforted, "I have a feeling that the Devil Clan is planning something big this time. Don't be impatient. Hey, look at the magma." Tang Zheng's pupils constricted, and his gaze immediately locked onto the magma. Thousands of streams of magma gradually converged, and finally turned into a huge river. Like a huge dragon, it swam towards the depths of the 100,000 mountains, rumbling, rumbling. Everywhere it passed, everything turned into ruins. Whether it was swamps, towering trees, rocks, or animals, nothing could stop this momentum. Where is this magma going? Tang Zheng muttered to himself. Perhaps this is the purpose of the Devil Clan. They want to trigger this world-destroying magma. Maybe they want to use it for something. Li Xiaotian guessed. Lu Qingmei could not wait and said, "Then what are we waiting for? Let's catch up and see." Tang Zheng nodded secretly and said, "Somersault cloud, catch up." Whoosh! The three of them chased in mid-air, flying deeper into the 100,000 mountains. At the same time, on the top of the tallest building in Dianan, several people stood and looked in the direction of the 100,000 mountains. The earth-shattering scene just now was completely reflected in their eyes. They fell into silence, but the shock and doubt in their eyes grew stronger and stronger. "Granny Li, what should we do?" Granny Li stood at the front with a cold expression. Her wrinkles seemed to be full of murderous intent. She did not go to the Divine Gate trip, but when she saw the Lord Ji Wuxiang return with a defeated army, she was shocked to the extreme. She never thought that Ji Wuxiang would be defeated and return. This was not the most terrible thing. What made her more anxious was Ji Wuxiang's reaction after he came back. He seemed to be a completely different person. Without the previous domineering aura, he became indecisive and worried. His confidence and courage seemed to have been worn away, and even Granny Lee was not as good as him. After Granny Lee figured out what happened at the Divine Gate, she understood that Ji Wuxiang had fallen into his inner demons. If there was no way to get out, perhaps his life would be ruined. Ruthless. She could only use this word to describe her opponent. This move was too ruthless for Ji Wuxiang. It was simply fatal. Granny Lee was powerless, but she still believed that Ji Wuxiang could defeat the inner demons and stand up again. At that time, he would be stronger than before and lead them to a more brilliant victory. Now, she had to shoulder the burden and not let Ji Wuxiang's foundation be destroyed. The Long family had a huge influence in Dianan, and their intelligence network was not inferior to the Li Palace. When Long Xianyuan reported to her that he found traces of the demons in the 100,000 mountains, she rushed over without stopping. As for Ji Wuxiang, he closed his door and did not see anyone. Granny Lee had no other choice but to let it be. Hearing Long Xuanyuan's question, Granny Lee stood up straight and said, "Such a big thing happened in the 100,000 mountains, and the appearance of the demons here is definitely not a coincidence. There must be something even bigger happening. We must find a way to get there. The Lord is not in charge of the affairs for the time being, so we old guys have to support everything." Long Xianyuan nodded in agreement. He had completely surrendered to the Lord, so he naturally did not dare to be suspicious. Granny Lee's identity was extraordinary, so he naturally listened to her orders. There is a sea of fire in the 100,000 mountains, a doomsday scene. Do we have a way to get in? Granny Lee asked. They were martial artists, not cultivators, so they could not fly. There is nothing in the world that is difficult for those who are willing. Moreover, this is Dianan, there is nothing that I, Long Xianyuan, can't do. Long Xianyuan said confidently, his eyes flashing. Chapter 1278. The somersault cloud moved as fast as lightning, chasing after the direction of the magma and entering the deepest part of the 10,000 huge mountains. Prehistoric heavenly tomb. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted as he saw the gigantic black monument standing tall. Those who trespass will die. The 4 words emitted the aura of death. Even though they were far away, they still gave off a suffocating pressure. Boom! The magma struck the stone tablet with an unparalleled momentum. The stone tablet was like a piece of chocolate, quickly melting and becoming a part of the magma. The magma continued to surge forward. In the prehistoric heavenly tomb, there were still some remaining demonic beasts. When they saw the magma, they all scattered in all directions. Some of them did not manage to escape in time, and ended up like the stone tablet. The 3 of them watched this scene silently. Along the way, they had witnessed the might of the magma and could only be described as shocked. In addition, this magma was different from the magma that erupted from ordinary volcanoes. It seemed to have no end and did not solidify. It was like a river, and it was unknown when it would reach its end. Why did it come to the prehistoric heavenly tomb? Tang Zheng was puzzled. However, the whereabouts of the Saint King was still a mystery. He had no way of unraveling the mystery behind it, so he could only continue to chase after it. The magma flowed deeper into the prehistoric heavenly tomb step by step. Those tombs were immediately covered by the magma, melted, and turned into nothingness. The corpses of the experts from tens of thousands of years ago were all destroyed in an instant. The tombstones collapsed one after another, appearing extremely desolate. Many of the souls in these tombs have already flown out, leaving behind only useless bones. Now, even the bones are gone. Tang Zheng sighed. The magma flowed through the tomb, but it did not stop and continued to move forward majestically. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. He looked in the direction of the magma and his heart trembled. He exclaimed, "Buzhou Mountain." The magma was flowing in the direction of the Buzhou Mountain. The Buzhou Mountain was of great importance. Could it be that the demon clan's target was the Buzhou Mountain? One of the reasons I came here this time is to investigate the situation of the spatial isolation at the peak of the Buzhou Mountain. If the demon clan were to stir up trouble in the Buzhou mountain, wouldn't that disrupt his plans? Vexed, Tang Jing scratched his head. For the time being, he tossed aside these messy thoughts and said, "Somersault Cloud, pick up the pace and head to Mount Buzhou." Since he had guessed the direction of the magma, Tang Zheng was not going to wait for his death. He rushed to Mount Buzhou first. Whoosh! The somersault cloud tore through the air and flew towards Mount Buzhou like a bolt of lightning. Gradually, it left the lava behind. Not long after, Mount Buzhou gradually came into view. That towering mountain peak was awe-inspiring. "There's someone on the mountain." Tang Zheng's eyes were sharp. He saw the people on the top of the mountain at a glance. The formation on Buzhou mountain had dissipated, and there was not so much fog, so he could see the situation on the mountain from afar. On the peak of the mountain, several people were surrounding and protecting a person. A ray of light rose from the middle person's hand and exploded in midair. Like a rain of pear blossoms, drops of light sprinkled down and enveloped the peak of the mountain. Saint King. Tang Jing narrowed his eyes slightly. He recognized the person in the middle. It was the Saint King that he had been searching for so long. Their target was actually Mount Buzhou. So they were hiding here. No wonder he had searched for so long and came up empty-handed. Saint King must be plotting something against the demons. Judging from the light sprinkling down like raindrops, they must be casting some kind of spell. No matter what they wanted to do, as long as they did not succeed. "The two of you stay on the somersault cloud. Be careful. I'll go and check out the situation first," Tang Jing instructed. "We'll go with you. We can help out too," Li Xiaotian said. Tang Jing shook his head. The other party's strength is extraordinary, and their motives are unclear. "If I need you, I'll naturally call for you." With that, he jumped off the somersault cloud. Falling from a height of 10,000 feet, the cold wind blew past his ears. A bone-piercing chill enveloped his entire body. Tang Zheng was unscathed. Like a meteorite, he fell from the sky and headed straight for the snow-covered mountain peak. Everyone from the devil race raised their heads and noticed this uninvited guest. "Tang Zheng, it's you again." Saint King opened his mouth. His voice was as cold as frost, and his killing intent was obvious. Tang Zheng heard him and replied loudly, "It's me, Saint King. What are you demons doing at Mount Buzhou? What are you plotting?" The sage coldly snorted, but didn't reply. With a murderous aura, he said, "Since you're bent on seeking death, then I'll fulfill your wish. The past grudges between you and ancestor Qiyu have already been written off." A large part of the credit for Qiyu's resurrection was due to Tang Jing. However, the two sides were like fire and water. That little bit of history could not offset each other's enmity. Tang Jing did not appreciate it. He said bluntly, "Who wants to have anything to do with Qiyu? That was just a freak combination of factors. It's already in the past. At this moment, we're talking about the current grudges." As soon as he finished speaking, he landed on top of the demons' heads. The shooting sun arrow was shot out first. Whoosh! The shooting sun arrow tore through the air with an unparalleled aura. It was as if it was going to tear everything apart. "Stop him. I can't let him spoil my great matter," the sage commanded. The other devils accepted the order one after another, and several of them leaped up. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A few magic treasures went straight for the shooting sun arrow and Tang Jing. These demons had experienced countless life and death battles in the heavens beyond heaven. They had walked through the gates of hell many times. Not only were their cultivations high, but they also had rich battle experience. Facing a holy weapon like the shooting sun arrow, their aura was not weak at all. On the contrary, the few of them joined hands and attacked like lightning. The sky was filled with light and murderous aura. The sky above their heads seemed to have become a death zone. Puff! The shooting sun arrow broke into this death zone. It was as if it had broken the calm surface of a lake. The air surged and ripples surged. A strong wind blew and the air was crushed. If something else entered this area, it would probably be smashed into pieces. But these magic treasures were different. The shooting sun arrow was even more so. Clang! The shooting sun arrow hit a magic treasure and released a bright light. With a crack appeared on the magic treasure and then quickly expanded. The magic treasure was destroyed. The attack of the shooting sun arrow did not weaken at all. Instead, it became more and more powerful. It hit a few more magic treasures in succession, either damaged or destroyed. The magic treasures fell one after another. Tang Zheng was already at the 5th stage of the soul formation realm. His cultivation was not lower than the demons. More importantly, the shooting sun arrow and the heaven-shocking bow were holy weapons. They were far more powerful than the magic treasures of the demons. The difference between the two sides was obvious. The number of people was not enough to make up for the difference. Saint King's eyes flashed with astonishment. He had already fought with Tang Zheng a few times, so he knew Tang Zheng's cultivation very well. But this time, his cultivation was obviously much higher than last time. It had only been a short time, but there was such a qualitative change. How could he not be shocked? As expected, he has the same physique of a celestial as my ancestor. He can cultivate with twice the result with half the effort. However, in the end, he can't be compared to ancestor Qi Yu. In this world, there can only be one celestial, and it can only be ancestor Qi Yu. Saint King's killing intent soared as he muttered to himself. When Tang Zheng heard this, he was not angry. Instead, he calmly replied, Saint King, my life and death is not something you can decide. What is your purpose in coming to Buzhou Mountain? Why did you cause the volcano to erupt? Tang Zheng floated in the air. He was not in a hurry to attack. His previous move had already intimidated his opponent. He wanted to figure out his opponent's purpose first. Saint King's eyelids suddenly jumped. He asked in surprise, You actually know that the volcano eruption is related to my demon race? Could it be that you went to the Saint Mountain? Of course. Unfortunately, I was one step too late. I couldn't stop your demon race's conspiracy. You caused the people in the 100,000 mountains to be plunged into misery and suffering. There were countless casualties and turned into a mess of scorched earth. Tang Zheng said in annoyance. You are really a ghost that won't go away. You have repeatedly ruined my demon race's plans. Fortunately, you didn't succeed this time. Otherwise, you won't be able to atone for your sins even if you die 10,000 times. Saint King said in fear. This mission was given to him by his ancestor, Qi Yu. He had also prepared for it for a long time. He couldn't afford to make the slightest mistake. If he failed at the final step and was ruined by Tang Zheng, not only would he not be able to answer to Qi Yu, but he would also not be able to pass the hurdle in his heart. He was the demon race's Saint King who had been famous for a long time. But his plans were repeatedly ruined by a brat who was still wet behind the ears. If this spread out, what would happen to his reputation? How would he convince the masses? Tang Zheng was not afraid of Saint King's threat. He laughed and said, I want to ruin your demon race's so-called plans. Because, it is not a good thing at all. It is an evil thing that will harm countless creatures. Extremely stupid. What do you mean by harming living beings? Every great thing needs to be sacrificed. There is no exception. Although we are harming some creatures by doing this, it is for the benefit of the whole world. We will not let this world meet with a disaster. Saint King retorted. Tang Zheng widened his eyes in surprise. He wondered if he had heard wrongly. Saint King actually dared to boast shamelessly that he was doing this for the benefit of the whole world. Ridiculous, ridiculous. Ha ha ha. Tang Zhang looked up to the sky and laughed. He laughed so hard that tears were about to come out. He had never heard such a ridiculous joke. Saint King shook his head and said disdainfully, "How can a frog at the bottom of a well understand the grand plan and thoughts of ancestor Chi Yu?" Tang Zhang went with the flow and asked, "Then tell me, what exactly is Chi Yu's plan?" Saint King opened his mouth as if he was about to blurt out, but he immediately swallowed his words back. He looked at Tang Zhang with a cold smile and said, "You want to trick me? You're too naive. You have no right to know ancestor Chi Yu's plan." Tang Zhang's expression changed. He said with a murderous look, "Since you are so stubborn, then I will let Shura ask you. Let's see if your mouth is harder than Shura's blade. Shura, come out." With a thought, Shura was summoned from Sumra world. Roar! Shura looked up to the sky and roared. His voice shook the wilderness. Strong yin qi soared into the sky, causing the peak of Mount Buzhou to blow with a chilling wind. It was as if it had turned into hell. The Shura's intelligence increased with each passing day, and his eyes gradually filled with the light of wisdom. He deeply looked at Tang Zhang, but did not disobey his orders. Looking down from above, he dove down towards the demon clan. Shura was born with a murderous nature. Even if Tang Zhang recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra every day, it did not completely dispel his evil aura. Chapter 1279. When the Saint King saw the Asura again, his pupils constricted, and he could not hide his fear. He had fought with the Asura before, and even the edge of his own magic weapon, the heaven-splitting axe, was destroyed. He then spent a lot of effort and materials to repair it. Now that he was facing the Asura again, one could imagine how he felt. However, the Saint King did not retreat. He still looked at the Asura, who was descending from the sky, and roared, "Form the formation. Do you think you can sit back and relax just because you have the Asura? You think too simply of the demon clan. Stubbornly resisting, what's the point of saying so much to keep up appearances?" Tang Zhang said disdainfully. He had absolute confidence in the Asura, and with the victory last time, he naturally believed in the Asura's strength. The Asura stretched out his hand, and the Asura saber appeared in his palm. It whistled as if it was going to split the sky directly. A crack was indeed split open in the sky. It was pitch black, and even the air disappeared. The demon clan showed fear on their faces, but no one retreated. Instead, they skillfully formed the formation, and with a move, they changed their positions. They muttered, and their fingers pointed to the middle. Drops of blood flew out from their fingertips and gathered together to form a huge blood bead. The Saint King's 5 fingers grabbed the air, and the blood bead spun rapidly under his palm. He also muttered, and his mana fluctuated violently. Formation. The Saint King roared, and his big hand swung in the air. The blood bead flew up into the sky, and with a bang, it exploded and dissipated in the air. Tang Zhang frowned slightly. He had not seen the demon clan use this formation last time, and did not know how powerful it was. All this happened in a flash. When the blood bead exploded, the Asura saber fell on the mountain peak. Puff! One person happened to be standing under the Asura saber, and under this terrifying attack, there was no way he could escape. He could only watch as the saber fell, and from the top of his head to the bottom of his body, he was split into 2. Before the body could be completely separated, it was crushed by the violent yin qi, and scattered with the wind. The smell of blood in the air rushed to the sky. Roar! Smelling the scent of blood, Shura's killing intent surged. His eyes seemed to turn blood red, stimulating his ferocious nature. A huge crack appeared on the mountain, as if the entire Buzhou mountain was about to be split into 2 by this saber. The people around him were also affected and were swaying left and right. Saint King remained unmoved, as if he had taken root in the ground. He looked at the ferocious Shura and grinned. Shura, you are indeed very strong, but you are not of this world. If you want to show off in this world, you have chosen the wrong place. Hearing these words, the Shura flew into a rage, thinking that they were provoking him. Tang Zhang's heart skipped a beat as he had a bad premonition. The sage wasn't a fool. He had suffered a defeat at the hands of the Shura, and he had Chiyu, a leader who knew a lot about the Shura. He shouldn't be stupid and take the initiative to throw his life away under the Shura's blade. Moreover, Saint King's words had a deeper meaning. Could it be that there was something wrong with his so-called array? Saint King pressed his hand to his chest and said in a deep voice, "With my blood, heaven and earth as the furnace, I form the heavenly furnace array." A drop of blood flew out from his chest. This was his heart's blood. It was different from ordinary blood, as it contained a part of his cultivation. If he had a choice, he would never force out his heart's blood. This was a move that would harm himself. Back then, Tang Zhang's absorption of Chiyu's heart's blood made Chiyu panic, and he had no choice but to compromise with Tang Zhang. Saint King forced out his heart's blood to form an array, so this array was naturally extraordinary. That drop of heart's blood rose into the air and exploded, turning into countless tiny bloodlines that spread in all directions. Blood spots lit up in the sky again. Those were the blood droplets that had just exploded, and now they appeared again. The blood lines connected with the blood spots and intertwined. Suddenly, it became like a large umbrella, covering the sky and the sun, covering the top of Shura's head. Tang Zhang's heart trembled, and he reminded loudly, "Shura, be careful." Shura raised his head and looked at the giant blood umbrella above his head with contempt. He roared, and the Shura's saber slashed toward the sky as if he wanted to destroy the blood umbrella. Heavenly cauldron. The sage hysterically roared. Heaven and earth changed color, and the sun that hung high in the sky exploded with blazing rays of light. These rays of light seemed to be completely absorbed by the blood umbrella. The blood umbrella lit up with rays of red light, which was extremely strange. A blazing light fell from the blood umbrella like a laser, heading straight for the Shura. Tang Zhang opened his eyes wide as he looked at this scene in disbelief. In the unseen world, he seemed to have understood something. This so-called heavenly furnace array communicated with the power of the sun, mobilized the yang energy between heaven and earth, and then condensed together to form a huge force to attack Shura. Just as he understood all of this, the ray of light had already collided with the Shura saber. As soon as the invincible Shura saber came into contact with the ray of light, its offensive power decreased sharply. Wisps of black gas rose up like water vapor. This was the collapse of the yin energy. In the final analysis, Shura was born from the gathering of yin energy, and so was the Shura saber. This combined the yang energy of heaven, earth, and the sun to form an attack. It might not be fatal to humans, but it was definitely fatal to the creatures of the ghost realm. Unlike other people in the ghost realm, Shura was not afraid of yang energy and could move freely in the human world. The most fundamental reason was that he had enough yin energy, and was not afraid of the erosion of yang energy. However, there was nothing absolute in the world. Shura was the same. He was not afraid of ordinary yang energy, because yang energy was very scattered, and the erosion to him was very little. However, when enough yang energy was gathered, the attack could not be underestimated. This so-called heavenly furnace array was like that. With heaven and earth as a furnace, it gathered yang energy and burned all the yin energy in the array. This array was a method that Chiyu had studied for a long time to deal with Shura. Chiyu knew how powerful Shura was. This was definitely a stinky and hard stumbling block on his path forward, and he had to find a way to kick it away. The heavenly furnace array was born to achieve this purpose. It had to be said that Chiyu was a genius, and he even thought of this method. Tang Zhang had always thought that Shura was almost invincible, and with his help, he could sit back and relax. Therefore, this time, he did not bring too many people. He thought that with Shura, he would be able to deal with all the dangers. Now it seemed that his thinking was too simple. The yin energy of the Shura saber collapsed, and soon the attack was completely disintegrated. In an instant, the Shura saber turned into wisps of yin energy, drifting in the air, and was immediately raised and burned, turning into nothingness. Shura had never encountered such a situation, and was shocked and angry. He already had intelligence, and was no longer a killing machine. Of course, he also understood that this was a great danger. Even so, he still did not retreat. On the contrary, his eyes bulged, and his height grew rapidly. In an instant, he became a huge monster, and his huge palm grabbed the blood umbrella, trying to break the array. Chapter 1280. The Shura's giant hand grabbed at the blood umbrella and a biting cold wind blew along with his attack. The sky seemed to change color. However, this cold wind was quickly swept away and the blazing yang qi instantly enveloped it. His giant hand was about to grab the blood umbrella but it was surrounded by the yang qi. In an instant, strands of yin qi rose from the giant hand. Whoosh whoosh. A gust of wind rose but it was not yin qi. Instead, it was extremely hot yang qi that blew away the yin qi. The Shura's hand immediately became blurry like the Shura's blade, facing the possibility of collapse at any time. When Tang Zheng saw this scene, how could he not understand the power of the heavenly furnace array? His face suddenly changed and he exclaimed, "Shura, be careful. This yang qi is too strong and will cause great harm to you." The Shura did not say a word. His eyes flashed with an unyielding look. He clenched his teeth as if he was going to fight this yang qi to the end. Quickly go and save him. Otherwise, once the Shura is defeated, you can forget about stopping the demon's actions. The inner demons could not watch any longer and impatiently reminded him. Of course, Tang Zheng understood this point. He directly rushed out and the shooting sun arrow in his hand flew towards the blood umbrella above his head. He was also enveloped in the blood umbrella. The strong yang qi rushed from the top of his head into his 8 extraordinary meridians. He had the 9 yang saint body and his body contained a vast amount of pure yang energy. In the gate of heaven, he absorbed the pure yin energy contained in the heavenly bed and neutralized most of the pure yang energy. At least for the time being, he could sit back and relax. However, this time, the yang qi filled his head with wisdom and rushed into his meridians like a great flood, causing the silent pure yang energy to instantly become restless. Yang qi and pure yang energy had something in common. This was the reason why yang qi would cause such a large reaction. Tang Zheng immediately noticed this point and hurriedly urged his cultivation to suppress the restless pure yang energy. Fortunately, he had absorbed enough pure yin energy last time. Therefore, for the time being, the pure yang energy would not completely go out of control. The shooting sun arrow flew towards the blood umbrella. When Saint King and the others saw this, they couldn't just sit by and watch. Saint King shouted. Light flashed in his hand, and the sky-opening axe flew toward the shooting sun arrow. In the air, the 2 Dharma treasures collided, and a resplendent light burst out. The sky-splitting axe successfully blocked the attack of the shooting sun arrows. The fornax array formation continued to operate, and the vast yang qi completely enveloped the Shura's body. The Shura roared and struggled, trying to completely resist the yang qi attack. However, yang qi was the Asura's nemesis. Especially with the support of the fornax formation, it completely restrained him. Even if he had a shocking cultivation base, he couldn't do anything. It had to be said that Qi Yu was indeed a peerless genius. He actually thought of this method to restrain the Asura. It was no wonder that he could lead the 9 Li tribe and become an ambitious and ruthless person. Qi Yu had experienced the power of the Asura. Because he had stayed in Tang Zheng's body for so long, he knew a lot about geniuses. That was why he spent so much effort to create the fornax array formation. Seeing the Azura struggling with all his might, but he couldn't break free from the pain of the yang qi, Tang Zheng was burning with anxiety. The shooting sun arrows and the sky-splitting axe fought each other endlessly. He wanted to, but he didn't have the strength to change the situation. When Saint King saw this, he laughed wildly. Tang Zheng, this is your fate. You dared to go against Ancestor Qiyu, so this is the only outcome. This day next year will be your death anniversary. Saint King's cultivation base was originally higher than Tang Zheng's. Although the sky-splitting axe wasn't as powerful as the shooting sun arrows, the difference in their cultivation bases was quite big. Therefore, Tang Zheng was still not a match for Saint King. With a thought from Saint King, the sky-splitting axe's attack power increased greatly. In an instant, Tang Zheng was overwhelmed. However, he didn't give up. He immediately summoned the four symbols venerables. With two rumbling sounds, the four symbols venerables stomped on the mountain peak. The mountain peak shook a few times as if it was about to collapse. Saint King's pupils shrank. He looked at the four symbols venerables in astonishment and shouted, "This is the sacred object of the demon race. It actually fell into your hands. Today, I will take back the Saint King." There were many rumors about the four symbols venerables in the demon race. However, later on, the demon race never saw the four symbols venerables. They thought it was a legendary object that had been lost in the long river of history. Saint King knew more information about the four symbols venerables than others. This was all told to him by Qiyu. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win 100 battles. Qiyu naturally wouldn't hide any information about Tang Zheng. He told everything to Saint King, especially about the four symbols venerables. Qiyu emphasized it. After all, the four symbols venerables had a high position in Qiyu's heart. However, the four symbols venerables weren't like the war soul sword. He could awaken the sword soul and control the war soul sword. The four symbols venerables were connected to Tang Zheng. He couldn't interfere at all. Naturally, he couldn't make the four symbols venerables listen to him. He really regretted not leaving a back door in the four symbols venerables back then. That way, he could smoothly control it. Perhaps, Qiyu also never thought that someone could take the four symbols venerables from his hands. The arrogant him simply thought it was nonsense. However, reality was often more dramatic and cruel than one's imagination. Qiyu deeply experienced this point. He repeatedly warned Saint King that if he had the chance, he must snatch the four symbols venerables back. Once he had the four symbols venerables, he might be able to change the witch clan's mind and submit to his ancestor. After all, the four symbols venerables had an important position in the witch clan that no one else could replace. For symbols venerables, attack them. Tang Zheng was not in a hurry to enter the four symbols venerables. He was more and more connected to the four symbols venerables, and even if he was not in their bodies, he could control them freely. Without saying a word, the four symbols venerables took huge steps and rushed towards the demon clan. The demon clan had the advantage in numbers, but facing this colossus, they were still a little afraid. Although the Azura was also a colossus, they had a way to deal with him, so they were naturally not worried. However, the four symbols venerables were not ordinary. Without a way to restrain them, they naturally did not have confidence in their hearts. Whoosh! The four symbols venerables were not afraid of Yang Qi. With a single move, they swept their nimble stone legs towards the demon clan. The demon clan was ready to attack. Seeing the attack coming, they immediately jumped up in an attempt to dodge. However, the four symbols venerables' attacks were like a storm, extremely swift and fierce. Three of them did not have time to dodge at all and were hit by the stone legs one after another. Bang bang bang. With three crisp sounds, the three people's bones broke one after another. Before they could scream, they lost their lives. Seeing this, Saint King's face suddenly darkened, and he roared, "Tang Jing, you dare to use the demon clan's holy artifact to attack the demon clan. You are disgraceful. Leaving the holy artifact in your hands is blasphemy. Today, I will take back the holy artifact." Just as he finished speaking, Saint King charged towards the four symbols venerables. With a bang, the heaven-splitting axe chopped down on the four symbols venerable's head. The four symbols venerables touched its head. It did not split open, but the immense pain also stimulated the four symbols venerable's ferocity. The four symbols venerables was enraged. It ferociously charged towards Saint King. At this moment, it only had eyes for Saint King. It only wanted to tear him apart. Saint King subconsciously retreated a few steps. With a leap, he leaped over the four symbols venerable's shoulder and reached out his hand to grab the back of the four symbols venerable's head. The paragon of four symbols immediately sensed the wind at the back of his head and forcibly turned his head around. At this moment, his body was forward, but his head was turned 180 degrees to the back. He stared fixedly at the sage. Whoosh! The stone leg kicked backwards, and the divine dragon swings its tail skillfully repelled Saint King's attack. Saint King was not discouraged. Like a bolt of lightning, he launched another attack, still aiming for the back of the four symbols venerable's head. The four symbols venerable's head turned back to its normal angle and fought with Saint King. Seeing this, Tang Jing inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. With the four symbols venerable suppressing Saint King, he could now focus on helping Azura. Azura was in an extremely dangerous situation. Strands of yin qi drifted out from his body and were refined by yang qi, disappearing into nothingness. If this continued for a long time, even if Azura was condensed from yin qi, it would be completely exhausted and disintegrated into nothingness. Back then, Kitagarbha Bodhisattva had not been able to do it, but Chi-Yu had actually succeeded by creating a set of array formations. The Dizang of Goguryeo could not mobilize yang qi, but Chi-Yu could. This was the difference. Tang Zheng leaped up, attempting to attack the blood umbrella. At this moment, the other demons also flew up, and a series of swift and fierce attacks arrived. Tang Zheng was trapped in the center. Looking at the incoming attacks, he raised his holy armor shield to defend himself while drawing his bow. The sun-shooting arrow pierced through the air, heading straight for the top of the blood umbrella. "Stop him!" Saint King saw this scene from the corner of his eye and immediately ordered loudly. The sun-shooting arrow was extremely powerful. This arrow would definitely affect the formation. The demons understood this very well. Therefore, they had to stop Tang Zheng. "I'll do it." A demon volunteered and roared. As he spoke, his body moved. Like a cannonball, he flew to the top of the blood umbrella. Pooh! He used all his skills and finally managed to get in between the sun-shooting arrow and the blood umbrella at the moment when it hit. The sun-shooting arrow pierced through his body and was unable to harm the blood umbrella. The demon widened his eyes and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He revealed a sinister smile. Another one who is not afraid of death. Tang Zheng helplessly let out a long sigh. These demon clan were like death soldiers, they did not take their lives seriously at all. The demons had already surrounded them. Tang Zheng could not split himself and could not help the Azura. The Azura cried out in pain. The situation was critical. Suddenly, a white cloud quietly floated over from afar. The others did not notice that there was an additional white cloud in the sky. It gradually flew to the top of the blood umbrella. This white cloud was, of course, the somersault cloud. The somersault cloud carried Li Xiaotian and Lu Qingmei and floated in the air, but it was not enough to let people find out. But when the two saw that the Azura was trapped and Tang Jing could not do anything, they were anxious. The two of them wanted to help Tang Jing, but the somersault cloud did not move. This made them very depressed. They were flying in mid-air and could not jump down like Tang Jing. They would be smashed to pieces if they did. But they did not give up. They treated the somersault cloud as a living creature and kept pleading with it to bring them to help. Finally, the somersault cloud seemed to be moved by the two of them and flew to the top of the blood umbrella. The others thought that it was just a white cloud and did not know what was going on. Chapter 1281. The somersault cloud flew to the top of the blood umbrella, like a white cloud enveloping the sky. It did not attract anyone's attention. Lu Qingmei and Li Xiaotian stood in the clouds, staring at the blood umbrella. They took out their weapons at the same time. Lu Qingmei's magic treasure was the dragon-trapped rope. She already knew the dragon-trapped rope like the back of her hand. She could use it freely. Li Xiaotian's weapon was a bow and arrow, although she had lost her memories, perhaps because she was too obsessed with the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrows. She still had a soft spot for the bow and arrow. Lu Qingmei pointed his finger, and the dragon-trapped rope slowly flew up. At the same time, Li Xiaotian knocked an arrow and aimed at the blood umbrella. Go! Lu Qingmei shouted softly, and the dragon-trapped rope flew out, flying towards the top of the blood umbrella along with the arrow. This scene immediately aroused the vigilance of the others. Saint King raised his head and roared, "Who is it? How dare you ruin my plans?" Tang Zhang's eyes lit up as he recognized the somersault cloud. Of course, he understood that it was his two companions who had made a move. He did not expect this to happen, and was secretly glad that he had brought them along. Stop them! Saint King roared. The heaven-splitting axe flew out, slashing towards the dragon-trapped rope and the arrow. However, he could not reach them first. After all, the dragon-trapped rope and the arrow had already taken the initiative. Bang bang! The two weapons struck the blood umbrella at the same time. Amidst the loud noise, the blood umbrella shook violently. Red light flashed chaotically, as if it could collapse at any time. The holy sage was so anxious that his eyes turned red. With a thought, the heaven-opening axe struck the two weapons. The dragon-trapping rope turned into a wisp of black smoke and enveloped the heaven-opening axe. Then, it returned to its original appearance, which was like a small agile snake. It coiled around the heaven-opening axe and tried to trap it. You overestimate yourself, you're courting death. Saint King's eyes shone with a fierce light as he said disdainfully. The heaven-splitting axe exploded with a resplendent light, and with a bang, the dragon-trapped rope exploded into a cloud of smoke. Cough! Lu Qingmei coughed violently, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. The dragon-trapping rope was shaken by the sky-splitting axe, and Lu Qingmei was also affected. Are you okay? Li Xiaotian asked with concern. Lu Qingmei wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She shook her head and said, I'm fine. That axe is very powerful. Be careful. Li Xiaotian nodded and shot another arrow. With a clang, it hit the heaven-opening axe, but it had no effect. So it was hiding in the clouds. I'd like to see just what kind of divine being dares to ruin my plans. Saint King was furious and shouted, Heaven-opening axe, chop it up for me. Whoosh! The sky-splitting axe tore through the air and shot towards the somersault cloud. Seeing this, Tang Zheng's heart was burning with anxiety as he shouted, Somersault cloud, quickly dodge. The somersault cloud immediately flew to the side, not fearing the heaven-opening axe at all. The heaven-opening axe missed. Saint King was bewildered. He did not expect this so-called somersault cloud to be able to dodge the heaven-opening axe's attack. The heaven-opening axe's attack was very fierce, and ordinary people would not be able to dodge it at all. However, the somersault cloud seemed to be able to dodge it easily, which puzzled Saint King. Seeing this scene, Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. If the somersault cloud was hit by the heaven-opening axe, then the two people on it would be in danger. Saint King was distracted, and the Four Symbols Knight's attack came like a tidal wave. Saint King was battered and exhausted as he dodged everywhere. Saint King glared fiercely at the Four Symbols Knight and flew into a rage. "Four Symbols Knight, I'll let you know who your true master is right now." With that, he leaped up and flew towards the Four Symbols Knight's head. The Four Symbols Knight grabbed with his hand as if he was catching an ant. However, Saint King was as fast as lightning and narrowly escaped the Four Symbols Knight's hand. He tapped the Four Symbols Knight's shoulder and flew to the back of his head. Bang! With a muffled sound, the Four Symbols Knight's movement suddenly froze, as if he had been immobilized on the spot. Saint King heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally restrained the Four Symbols Knight. Tang Zheng had telepathy and knew that things were not going well. His figure flashed, and without caring about the other demons, he flew to the Four Symbols Knight's side. "Saint King, what are you doing?" Saint King sneered. "Tang Zheng, do you really think the Four Symbols Knight is yours? This is a sacred item of the demons. How can it always fall into your hands? I'll let you see who its true master is right now." Tang Zheng had an ominous premonition. Judging from the Four Symbols Knight's reaction, it was likely that Saint King really did have a way to control the Four Symbols Knight. After all, the Four Symbols Knight was the protector of the witch tribe. In ancient times, he was also controlled by Chi Yu. This old bastard must have deliberately left some back door and never told him. Now, Chi Yu had imparted this back door to the sage, allowing him to have a way to control the Four Symbols Reverend. Tang Zheng had already lost War Soul. He definitely could not watch the Four Symbols Knight fall into Saint King's hands without doing anything. He hurriedly activated a spell in an attempt to communicate with the Four Symbols Knight while shooting an arrow. The shooting sun arrow was like a ray of light, flying in front of Saint King in the blink of an eye, stopping him from moving any further. Tang Zheng's reaction was too fast. Before Saint King could truly control the Four Symbols Knight, he forced Saint King to take a step back. Tang Zheng's communication with the Four Symbols Knight was fruitless. He quickly followed the shooting sun arrow and pressed forward, arriving in front of the Four Symbols Knight. The Four Symbols Venerable did not move at all, as if he was a statue. There must have been something seriously wrong with its body. At this critical moment, Tang Zheng had no way of carefully inspecting it. With a wave of his hand, Sumera Heavens collected it into his bag. The sage watched with his eyes wide open, but was powerless to do anything, and was endlessly regretful. He had just touched the back door of the Four Symbols Venerable, causing it to lose its ability to move. He was just about to completely control the Four Symbols Venerable in one go, but he didn't think that Tang Zheng's reaction would be so fast, and actually recalled the Four Symbols Venerable. In this way, even if Saint King had a way to control the Four Symbols Knight, he could not do anything. He could only sigh and feel vexed. "Tang Zheng, I'm going to kill you." Saint King roared angrily. Tang Zheng sighed inwardly and asked sternly, "Saint King, just how did you accomplish all of this?" Saint King glared fiercely at Tang Zheng and said proudly, "The Four Symbols Knight is a sacred object of the demon race. It has followed Ancestor Chi Yu for many years. Of course, Ancestor has a way to take back control." Tang Zheng shivered. He had guessed correctly. Chi Yu had left a back door in the Four Symbols Knight. He had always kept it a secret. Even if he could communicate with the Four Symbols Knight, he did not discover this point. "Chi Yu, you old bastard, you've schemed well." Tang Zheng gnashed his teeth. "Battle soul has been taken away by you. Don't even think about taking the Four Symbols Knight away." Saint King said disapprovingly, "I've already triggered the Four Symbols Knight's back door. Without my method, it can only be a dead statue. It is completely useless to you. Don't boast so early. I will find a way to awaken it." Tang Zheng said unwillingly, but the shock in his heart could be imagined. The four symbols knight had accompanied him all the way and helped him a lot. Without the four symbols knight, he probably would have died countless times. They had already become an indispensable part of him. If he lost the four symbols knight, it would be like a part of his body being taken away. All kinds of feelings could only be experienced by the person involved. Arrogant and conceited. If you can awaken the four symbols knight, then I, Saint King, will write my name backwards. Saint King said sarcastically. Tang Zhang's mood became increasingly heavy. Saint King's words were irrefutable. With such confidence, awakening the four symbols knight might not be an easy task. Saint King was very disappointed. The cooked duck had flown away. His gaze subconsciously turned towards Azura. His mood immediately improved. Azura's strength was something he and Chiyu had experienced firsthand. This time, they had seriously injured Azura and ruthlessly suppressed him until he couldn't even raise his head. This was a huge victory. Moreover, Azura's current condition was very bad. If this went on, even if Azura's soul didn't scatter, he would lose a layer of skin and his skills would be greatly reduced. Tang Jing, your so-called reliance Azura is also on the verge of death and can't protect himself. What qualifications do you have to fight me? You still want to ruin my grand plan. What wishful thinking. Saint King boasted complacently. Tang Zhang's expression was as cold as frost. Looking at the pained Azura, his heart was burning with anxiety. He moved his feet and rushed towards Azura. He also wanted to recall him to Sumra world to avoid the fate of having his soul scatter. Azura was handed over to him by the Dizang of Goguryeo. If his soul were to scatter, he wouldn't be able to answer to the Dizang of Goguryeo. In addition, Azura was also very important to him. He had helped him repeatedly to repel the enemy. How could he bear to part with Azura? When he moved his feet, Saint King also moved. He had learned from his mistakes and saw through Tang Zhang's intentions. Tang Zhang, the four symbols venerable was recalled by you. Do you think Azura will still be so lucky? Don't even think about getting close to him. Saint King said solemnly. If Tang Zhang couldn't get close to Azura, he naturally couldn't recall him to Sumra world. Saint King was very clear about this, so he definitely wouldn't give Tang Zhang the chance to get close to Azura. Tang Zhang's eyes darkened. How could he not understand the harm this would do to him? He didn't have time to think. There was only one thought in his mind, to save Azura. He definitely couldn't let his soul scatter. When Azura saw Tang Zhang approaching him without regard for his own safety, a complicated look appeared in his eyes. His previous hostility towards Tang Zhang couldn't be more obvious. But in order to unlock more wisdom, he endured the humiliation and stayed by Tang Zhang's side. Of course, part of the Ksitigarbha Sutra also had the effect of suppressing him. Seeing Tang Zhang risking his life to save him, his wisdom immediately came into play. He was a little surprised, but also a little touched. His survival instinct suppressed all his emotions. While resisting the power of the fornax formation with difficulty, he desperately begged Tang Zhang for mercy. Tang Zhang, hurry up and save me, hurry. Azura took the initiative to ask for help. This was unprecedented. If Azura was still an ignorant and mindless killing machine, he naturally wouldn't beg for mercy. But he was already an intelligent creature. Of course, he understood the importance of staying alive. Begging for mercy was naturally not difficult to understand. Tang Zhang looked at Azura from afar. He knew that Azura was definitely at the end of his rope. It was a matter of life and death, so that was why he was so flustered. Immediately, he became even more flustered. But Saint King was such a strong opponent, and there were other demons watching from the side. How could he rush over and save Azura? Chapter 1282. The Shura was in danger. On the somersault cloud, the two of them also realized this. They were anxious and could not care less about the threat of the demons. They launched another attack on the blood umbrella. Bang bang. With two dull sounds, the blood umbrella shook violently again. It was flickering as if it could collapse at any time. Saint King saw this and shouted, "Go and stop them." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. One by one, the demons flew toward the somersault cloud. The two of them looked down from above. When they saw the enemy attacking, they did not panic. Instead, they looked at each other and tacitly aimed their spears at the blood umbrella again. The blood umbrella was their real goal. They did not need to kill the demons. Moreover, the strength of the Devil clan was not inferior to theirs. It was indeed difficult to kill the Devil clan. When the demons flew in front of the somersault cloud, the dragon-trapping rope and arrows hit the blood umbrella again. Crack! A crack appeared on the blood umbrella. Although the fornax formation was powerful, its defense was not strong. Under the persistent attacks of the two of them, it was on the verge of collapsing. The fornax formation was damaged, so its power was naturally reduced. The Shura got a chance to breathe and saw a demon fly past him. He roared angrily, and his giant hand, which was constantly emitting yin qi, suddenly grabbed at the demon. The demon immediately became like an ant in his palm. Poof! Blood spurted out from the 5 fingers. The demon was crushed by the Shura. It was a bloody scene. "I will kill all of you." The Shura stared with his huge eyes like 2 lanterns. He turned his hand and slapped down, hitting a demon. Boom! The demon was slapped to the ground. The stone was shattered, and his flesh was mangled. He sank into the stone. The other demons were completely frightened by the Shura's terrifying attack. They were trembling. Li Xiaotian and Lu Qingmei were also deeply shocked by the Shura's attack. It was like the difference between an ant and an elephant. The demons were no match for the Shura. However, they were not happy for long. The demon's attack was in front of them. They hurriedly urged the somersault cloud to dodge. The somersault cloud did dodge. After all, even Saint King had successfully dodged the attack of the heaven-splitting axe, so how could he not dodge the attacks of the other demon race people? When the Saint King saw that the fornax formation was damaged, Shura was able to take a breather and unleash his invincible prowess. His heart was burning with anxiety. He was not in the mood to tangle with Tang Zheng. After repelling Tang Zheng's fierce attack, he flew towards Shura. Tang Zheng was not in a hurry to chase after him. Instead, he raised the heaven-shocking bow and the shooting sun arrow, aimed at the blood umbrella, and released his fingers. The shooting sun arrow pierced through the air and struck the blood umbrella like a bolt of lightning. Kacha! An even more crisp sound rang out. The blood umbrella shattered, turning into specks of bloody light that drifted in the air and completely disappeared. Saint King did not expect that Tang Zheng would be so decisive. He actually allowed him to succeed and completely destroy the fornax formation. Once the formation was broken, Shura was like a fierce tiger that had its shackles removed. His eyes widened and flickered with a dim light. He grabbed at the air and the Tao of Azura condensed again, emitting a chilling yin qi and killing intent. Kill! The Shura opened his bloody mouth and roared hysterically. His killing intent shook the sky, the yin qi wreaked havoc, and a violent wind blew. The few demon clans closest to the Shura did not even have the time to catch their breaths before they were split into 2 halves by the Shura blade that descended from the sky, dying on the spot. Saint King revealed a look of despair and let out a long sigh. He did not expect that the fornax formation that he had painstakingly built would not be completely successful. Of course, if not for the strange somersault cloud and the person hiding within, this battle would not have ended up like this. As for the person in the somersault cloud, Saint King could also see some signs. His cultivation was not very strong. He was truly hateful. In the end, he actually failed at the last step and lost to an opponent who was not very strong. Furthermore, he did not even see his opponent's appearance clearly. This was tantamount to a great humiliation. Lu Qingmei and Li Xiaotian saw that their efforts had finally succeeded and were unable to contain their joy. Lu Qingmei was so happy that she even jumped up. Li Xiaotian was calmer and looked at Lu Qingmei with a faint smile. Lu Qingmei calmed down and smiled embarrassedly. I have never experienced such a great battle, so I am a little excited. Understandable. Li Xiaotian nodded. Now we don't have to worry about failure, right? Lu Qingmei asked. Li Xiaotian looked down. The two sides were in a stalemate. It was really hard to say who would win and who would lose. Moreover, the purpose of the magma flowing to Mount Buzhou was still unclear. It was too early to talk about the outcome. Her gaze subconsciously looked in the direction of the magma and was horrified. Unknowingly, the magma had already flowed to the foot of Mount Buzhou. The speed of the red magma did not decrease. With a loud bang, it fiercely hit the foot of Mount Buzhou. The two sides suddenly swayed. The mountain shook and the earth shook. Everyone's expression changed. What's going on? Tang Zheng was shocked and did not know what to do. The magma is hitting Mount Buzhou. Li Xiaotian shouted at Tang Zheng. Like a high-pitched speaker, his voice fell from the sky and accurately entered everyone's ears. The demons all revealed a look of surprise and looked at Saint King in unison. The sage's eyebrows danced in delight as he madly laughed. Ha ha ha, Tang Zheng, you have spent so much effort to stop my actions, but it is all too late. The outcome has already been decided, and you have completely failed. Tang Zheng was at a loss. With a pale face, he asked, what is going on? The sage laughed mischievously and mysteriously said, in a moment, the outcome will become clear. You will naturally know. Tang Zheng had an ominous premonition, but he really could not guess what Saint King was thinking. In the end, he jumped and flew into the sky. He shouted, somersault cloud. Whoosh! The somersault cloud flew to his feet and caught him. The other two came up and looked at him with concern. He nodded at the two. Before he could say a word, his eyes were attracted by the scene at the foot of the mountain. The magma had gathered at the foot of Mount Buzhou. An endless stream of magma was flowing over from afar. Mount Buzhou was the destination. There was no doubt about this. The key was, what was the purpose of the magma gathering here? At the peak of Mount Buzhou, the Azura went berserk and swept in all directions. The demons were forced to retreat. The demons seemed to have no desire to continue fighting. They all retreated to the edge of Mount Buzhou and looked down the mountain. Saint King glanced at the somersault cloud in the sky from the corner of his eye. Then, he turned all his attention to the foot of the mountain. It seemed that he was unwilling to be distracted. The Azura was full of murderous intent and had nowhere to vent it. The others did not accept the challenge and retreated. He felt helpless. Gradually, he was attracted by the scene at the foot of the mountain. He stretched his neck and looked down at the foot of the mountain from above. Boom! With a loud sound, Mount Buzhou sank down. The demons swayed, but they were all pleasantly surprised. Chapter 1283. Mount Buzhou was sinking. This was the power of the magma. Was this what the demons were after? Seeing the demons' ecstatic expressions, Tang Zheng was even more certain of this. He asked loudly, Saint King, what are you going to do to Mount Buzhou? Saint King retracted his gaze from the foot of the mountain. He rolled his eyes and looked at Tang Zheng mockingly, didn't you see it already? There's no need for Mount Buzhou to exist. What? Tang Zheng had guessed a little, but after hearing Saint King's words, he could not help but tremble in fear. You want to destroy Mount Buzhou? You guessed right. Even if you know, you can't stop it. Soon, Mount Buzhou will disappear from this world. You want to read? Saint King said proudly. Mount Buzhou was different from ordinary mountains. It was a mountain with divine power. Back then, when Hundred Faces' star crashed into Mount Buzhou, he only broke the stairway to heaven. He did not hurt the foundation of Mount Buzhou. Hundred Faces' star did not have the power to do so. Even Qi Yu had to use external forces. He used the magma hidden deep in the ground to melt the foundation of Mount Buzhou bit by bit, and then caused it to collapse. Mount Buzhou has stood here for tens of thousands of years. What do you gain by destroying it? Tang Zheng believed that Qi Yu would not do something useless, so he asked this question. Mount Buzhou is the only way to connect the stairway to heaven and beyond heaven. As long as Mount Buzhou is destroyed, the two worlds will be separated forever. This is to protect mankind, to protect this world. Ancestor Qi Yu planned far ahead for the sake of this world, but you stopped him time and time again. Aren't you making the whole world your enemy? You proclaim yourself to be of the righteous path, so why would you do such a disgraceful thing? The sage spoke without stopping, and asked righteously and sternly. Tang Zheng frowned, thinking to himself, when did Qi Yu become so kind-hearted? He actually did things for the sake of the entire human race. This was not his style at all. Young man, don't be fooled by his lies. I know better than you what kind of person Qi Yu is. He was not a good person at all. How could he be so kind? He must be up to something else, but the other party is deliberately hiding it. The inner demon suddenly spoke, reminding Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was suddenly enlightened. Yes, how could he forget Qi Yu's character? How could he be so kind? There must be something fishy going on. No matter how grandiose the other party sounded, their motives were definitely not that simple. Tang Zheng's expression froze. He did not immediately point out the loopholes in Saint King's words. Instead, he followed his train of thought and asked, Saint King, you keep saying that you want to stop the outer sky from coming. Do you know that the outer sky's spatial isolation from our world is getting weaker and weaker? In the past, we had to use the celestial stairway to connect the two worlds. Now, we don't have to go through so much trouble. So even if you destroy Mount Buzhou, you may not be able to stop the outer sky's progress. Saint King was stunned. He looked at Tang Zheng in shock. Obviously, he did not think of this point. He asked in a deep voice, how did you know this? Back then, you were collectively expelled to the outer sky because of a huge conspiracy. It was to use you as a sacrifice to strengthen the outer sky's increasingly weak world. After you arrived at the outer sky, you should have known this already, right? Saint King's face darkened. Of course, he knew about this. After all the cultivators were expelled to the outer sky, they were not greeted with cheers. Instead, they were constantly hunted down. They were hunted until they were in a state of panic, like rats crossing the street. At the cost of many lives, they finally managed to stabilize. They fought a battle of wits and courage with the natives of the outer sky and occupied a place. Looking at the change in Saint King's expression, Tang Zheng knew that his words touched the other party's heart. He continued, the person who carried out this conspiracy is already dead. She was the one who told me about the separation of the two worlds. Is it that woman, Xian Yin? Saint King asked angrily. You actually know her. You must know that I'm not lying, right? Tang Zheng looked at Saint King in shock. Of course I know her. Even if she turned into ashes, I would still know her. After careful analysis, we found out that everything was a conspiracy of this vicious woman. I came back this time with a very important mission, and that is to kill her. Tang Zheng sighed. He did not expect Saint King to have such thoughts. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance. Why? Ancestor Qi Yu already told me that she fell into your hands. Don't tell me that you still want to protect this person from the outer sky. Saint King asked angrily. She's already dead. Dead? Saint King opened his eyes wide in disbelief. How could she be dead? Why can't she be dead? I saw it with my own eyes. How could it be false? Who killed her? Tang Zheng hesitated. He did not want to mention the golden dragon. He said, it doesn't matter who killed her. What's important is that she's already dead. Moreover, she was the one who told me about the separation of the two worlds. Do you think it's false? This. Saint King hesitated. Xian Yin is very cunning. What if she lied to you? What's the benefit of lying to me? Moreover, you have successfully returned from the outer sky. This is solid proof that the separation between the two worlds has indeed weakened. You're not a fool. You should know that I'm telling the truth. Tang Zheng did not want to waste his breath. After saying this, he did not say anything else. Saint King's expression changed. He pondered for a while and said, if that's really the case, then even if Mount Buzhou collapses, the people from the outer sky will still have a chance to come to this world. Of course, they will find a way. Damn it. Saint King stomped his foot and gritted his teeth. His anger seemed to be about to burst out of his head. So, it's useless for you to destroy Mount Buzhou. Tang Zheng summarized concisely. Who says it's useless? This is called talking about nothing. It will stop the outer sky from coming. Saint King's expression changed. He was still reluctant to admit it. Looking at his changing expression, Tang Zheng's heart moved. He hit the nail on the head and said, is there another reason why you demons destroyed Mount Buzhou? Not just to stop the outer sky from coming. As soon as he said this, Saint King's expression suddenly froze. Tang Zheng's fiery golden eyes immediately caught this change. The inner demons were right. Saint King was very cunning. He did not tell the truth at all. There must be another purpose. Saint King, don't quibble. Your expression has already betrayed you. What other purpose do you have? Tang Zheng asked sternly. Saint King glanced at Tang Zheng contemptuously and said, Tang Zheng, do you think I'll tell you? If you have the ability, guess it yourself. You demons are up to no good. You must have some crazy purpose. Tang Zheng shouted. I won't let you have your way. Do you have that ability? Just be a good spectator. You are witnessing history. You should feel honored. Boom. With a loud sound, Mount Buzhou sank a bit more. It shook violently and tilted in one direction. This. Tang Zheng was stunned. The power of the magma was so terrifying that it eroded the foundation of Mount Buzhou so quickly. It was unstable and almost collapsed. Inner demons, is there any way to stop this? Tang Zheng anxiously asked the inner demons. The inner demons sighed regretfully. There is no way. Mount Buzhou's foundation has been destroyed. There is no way to reverse the situation. Maybe this is the will of the heavens. Hearing the words will of the heavens, Tang Zheng could not help but think of Yan Qingyi's prophecy. In the prophecy, Mount Buzhou existed in the so-called end of the world. In the past, Tang Zheng could have ignored Yan Qingyi's prophecy. Now, Yan Qingyi had such a big change. Of course, he could not ignore her prophecy. Tang Zheng already believed 70 to 80% of it. But reality and the prophecy conflicted. Mount Buzhou was already about to collapse. How could there be an image of it standing tall in the prophecy? Tang Zheng was confused. Chapter 1284. Mount Buzhou was on the verge of collapse, trembling violently. Once Mount Buzhou completely collapsed, it would fulfill the wishes of the demons. 1. Look. Book. If Mount Buzhou collapsed, the demons would be able to profit from it. Wouldn't it be terrible if their scheme succeeded? Therefore, Mount Buzhou must not collapse. Inner demons, is there really no other way? Tang Jing asked again. I really can't think of a way. The inner demon said helplessly. Tang Jing frowned and gritted his teeth. He said unwillingly, I don't believe in this. Azura, come back. Tang Jing shouted. The Shura understood what he was thinking and leaped into the air. Sumera world flashed and took the Azura in. Somersault cloud, fly down. I want to see the situation below Mount Buzhou. Tang Jing controlled the somersault cloud and flew down the mountain with a whoosh. Saint King saw this and sneered, Tang Jing, don't waste your energy. Don't tell me you want to go against the trend. Tang Jing ignored him and arrived at the foot of Mount Buzhou. Waves of heat surged into the sky, making one's blood boil. The magma was still lapping at the foot of Mount Buzhou like waves, rumbling incessantly. The stones at the foot of Mount Buzhou turned red and melted little by little. The magma only hit one side of Mount Buzhou. When the stones on this side melted, Mount Buzhou tilted. Before long, Mount Buzhou would completely collapse without even needing to completely melt its foundation. Saint King's calculation was very accurate. Looking at the hot magma, Tang Jing frowned and thought hard. His gaze inadvertently swept past the somersault cloud. A light flashed through his mind. That's right, why didn't I think of this? Magma is fire, water and fire are incompatible. The nemesis of fire is water. Normal people can't create water out of thin air, but I'm different. I cultivate the dragon god technique and have the somersault cloud. Naturally, it's not a problem for me to create rain. The rain can cool the magma, so won't it stop the demons from scheming? Tang Zhang was in high spirits and beaming with joy. Unable to hold himself back any longer, he ordered, Somersault Cloud, it's all up to you now. You want to see it? Book. At the same time, he activated the dragon god art. As expected, the somersault cloud immediately expanded and gradually turned from a white cloud into a huge black cloud. The somersault cloud floated halfway up the mountain. Looking down from the peak, one could only see a pitch-black scene and nothing else. The sage exclaimed in surprise, and curiously asked, "What the hell is this brat doing? Why did a black cloud suddenly appear? Could it be that he was the one who attracted them?" Gotcha! With a thunderous boom, silver lightning snakes appeared in the somersault cloud, scuttling around in the clouds. The thunderbolt tore a hole in the somersault cloud. The torrential rain poured down, completely drenching the magma. When the hot magma met the cold rain, it immediately reacted. The magma was cooling and hardening. The tilting posture of Mount Buzhou immediately stabilized and did not continue to tilt. On the peak, the demons looked at the dark cloud suspiciously, not knowing that the magma was cooling and solidifying. However, they were not stupid. Sensing that Mount Buzhou had stabilized and was no longer tilting, they immediately understood what was going on. Saint King roared furiously. He was the one who summoned the black cloud. He actually has the ability to create rain. Saint King boasted of his high cultivation, but he definitely did not have this ability. He had already seen through Tang Zheng's intention and shouted, he wants to use the rain to cool the magma and thus stop Mount Buzhou from tilting. Saint King, what should we do? The others were also shocked by Tang Zheng's ability and asked one after another. Saint King's eyes flashed. His gaze was like a torch, as if it could penetrate the black cloud and lock onto Tang Zheng. Everyone, move out and stop him. Yes. Under Saint King's command, the demons moved out again. They directly jumped down from the peak and flew towards the black cloud like a rock spreading its wings. The demons could not see Tang Zheng. However, Tang Zheng hid in the somersault cloud and could clearly see the demons' actions. When he saw the demons descending from the sky, he immediately understood the other party's intention. Now that the initiative is in my hands, how can I let you destroy it? Somersault cloud, don't stop, continue to create rain. Crack. There was another thunderclap and the raindrops became heavier. Like hailstones, they pattered and fell into the magma, splashing bubbles. The magma solidified even faster. Saint King's sky-splitting axe whistled and slashed directly at the somersault cloud. The cloud layer was split in half, but it quickly closed again. The somersault cloud was not like other things. It did not have a specific form, and it was extremely difficult for external objects to cause damage to it. Saint King split the somersault cloud, but he did not see the figures of Tang Zheng and the rest. He was anxious and angry. The somersault cloud was so dark that it was easy for the few of them to hide in it. It was very difficult for him to accurately hit Tang Zheng and the rest. Everyone, attack. I don't believe that he can continue to be a coward, Saint King ordered hysterically. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. One by one, the magic treasures flew into the somersault cloud from all directions, trying to cut the somersault cloud so that there was no place to hide in any corner. The demons had achieved their goal. Tang Zheng and the rest were forced to appear. Saint King's gaze turned cold and locked onto the three of them without blinking. He said, "So there are two women. It was you who spoiled my plans just now. You will be buried together with Tang Zheng. Kill them." Now that their targets had appeared, the demons had a target and launched a fierce attack on the three of them. Tang Zheng and the rest hurriedly took out their weapons and met the demons' attacks with clanging sounds. Saint King flew past the somersault cloud and saw the scene at the foot of the mountain. He found that the magma was cooling down bit by bit, and he was furious. He had worked so hard and sacrificed so many elite subordinates to make this happen. He would not allow it to go to waste. He pointed downwards, and a black light shot out from his fingertip. It expanded with the wind, and in an instant, it turned into a canopy that covered the sky and blocked the rain. Rumble. The magma in the distance flowed over. Without the cooling of the rain, it immediately melted the cooled magma and rushed towards Mount Buzhou again. Mount Buzhou shook violently again and tilted bit by bit. Tang Zheng and the rest were entangled by the demons and had no time to spare, but they clearly saw Saint King's actions and the changes in Mount Buzhou. Mount Buzhou is tilting again. Li Xiaotian cried out involuntarily while dealing with the demons. She and Lu Qingmei were obviously not strong enough to deal with the demons. They were in dire straits and were in a sorry state. However, the two of them cooperated very well. It was as if they were one person, so their lives were not in immediate danger. Tang Jing saw that the rain had no way to get to the magma and knew that the plan had failed. Saint King's strength was originally stronger than his. It was not easy for him to stop Saint King's actions. But he would not sit still and wait for death. With a loud roar, the shooting sun arrow shot towards Saint King. Saint King turned his head slightly and said disdainfully, "You think this can stop our plan? What a fantasy! Sky-splitting axe." As soon as he finished speaking, the sky-splitting axe flew out like a bolt of lightning. With a clang, it met the shooting sun arrow. Sparks flew everywhere. The two magic weapons were neck and neck. No one could do anything to the other. That sky curtain still blocked the rain and did not move. The sound of thunder continued, but it could not do anything. This is a heaven-grade magic weapon. It can actually become so big. I must find a way to break it. This was indeed a heaven-grade magic weapon called Sky Curtain. It covered the sky and covered the sun. A mere heaven-grade magic weapon. I don't believe that I can't break it. Tang Zheng was ruthless. With a thought, the shooting sun arrow divided into 9. 6 shot towards Saint King and 3 shot towards the sky curtain from 3 different directions. Saint King's eyes widened and he roared, "You still dare to play with me? Men, stop him. Whoosh. A few demons bravely stood between the shooting sun arrow and the sky curtain. The shooting sun arrow shot straight in. It was as if it carried the power of wind and thunder. Its momentum was terrifying. But the demons were not afraid of death. They raised their magic weapons and tried to stop the shooting sun arrow. Crack! The shooting sun arrow hit a demon's magic weapon and broke it in two. The shooting sun arrow's attack did not decrease and directly pierced through the demon's chest. Poof! Blood splattered. The demon fell into the magma and immediately turned into nothingness. However, there were still fearless demons who rushed forward and blocked the shooting sun arrow. Two of the shooting sun arrows were intercepted. Only one shooting sun arrow managed to pass through the devil race. Pfft! The shooting sun arrow pierced through the sky, creating a long crack in the sky. The rain immediately found the exit and poured down like the water of the Milky Way from the ninth heaven. It fell from the sky and drenched the magma. The magma that was originally powerful was immediately attacked and its momentum slowed down. When the holy monarch saw this scene, he was both shocked and angry. He had so many people, but they were all defeated by Tang Jing. This was simply a great humiliation. Although the sky curtain was a heaven-grade magic weapon and was not as high-grade as a divine artifact, it was still a rare magic weapon. But it was damaged so badly. How could he not be angry? His anger was like magma that seemed to be able to devour everything. Saint King glared at Tang Jing fiercely. His eyes seemed to be able to kill. He shouted sternly, "Tang Jing, you are really a difficult guy to deal with. If I don't kill you, I swear I won't give up." Saint King was not in a hurry to attack Tang Jing. Instead, he avoided the shooting sun arrow and came to the side of the sky curtain. He held the sky curtain in his hand and continuously poured power into it. The sky curtain flashed with black light. The crack closed little by little. After a while, it returned to its original state and blocked the rain again. "You can do this." Tang Zhang's head trembled. He was shocked by Saint King's move. There was no way to break through the sky curtain, so the clouds and rain were useless. The magma was bound to hit Mount Buzhou again. Wouldn't Mount Buzhou be in danger? He tried all kinds of ways to stop the demons. Now, it seemed that it was just like Saint King said. It was all in vain. Mount Buzhou shook violently and tilted more and more. It seemed that it would not be long before it completely collapsed. He was anxious, but there was nothing he could do. Chapter 1285. There was no way to reverse the situation. The sage arrogantly laughed like a madman. He believed that there wouldn't be any more mistakes this time, and that success was already in the bag. Tang Jing was almost desperate, but his extraordinary perseverance told him that he absolutely could not compromise, and there was always a way out. As if to confirm this thought, he saw the healing sky, and a flash of inspiration, and two words jumped into his mind. Move the mountain. Since Mount Buzhou was going to collapse, then wouldn't it be fine if he moved it away? The foolish old man moved the mountain. That was a legend, and an almost impossible thing. This was not so absolute for Tang Jing. The fourth level of the sky-swallowing technique was to move the mountain. Back then, Tang Jing used the sky-swallowing technique to absorb the Yama's seal in the ghost realm, and after integrating the magical powers, the sky-swallowing technique jumped from the soul-devouring realm to the mountain-moving realm. However, although the sky-swallowing technique had such a breakthrough, he had never practiced the mountain-moving magical power. He suddenly had an idea to use the mountain-moving magical power to move Mount Buzhou away. In fact, there was no need to really move Mount Buzhou away. As long as the position was moved to avoid the magma, then the tragedy of collapse could be avoided. Mount Buzhou was different from ordinary mountains, and whether the mountain-moving magical power would work was unknown. He was a little nervous. At this time, there was no other way, and he could only try as a Hail Mary. If it did not succeed, then he would be completely out of ideas. He could not wait to run his power, and urged the sky-swallowing technique. Immediately, 2 black holes appeared in his palms, and a terrifying power spread out from the black holes. Saint King's pupils shrank, and he stared straight at the black holes, and immediately felt relieved, and laughed disdainfully. Ha ha ha, Tang Jing, you really surprised me a lot, and even cultivated the magical power of the demon clan, sky-swallowing technique. The sky-swallowing technique was originally a demon clan technique, and Saint King saw through it at a glance. Tang Jing was not surprised at all as he calmly continued to circulate his energy, silently brewing it. You are really desperate, and you want to use the sky-swallowing technique. Let me tell you, the sky-swallowing technique is a set of magical powers of little value in the demon clan. It seems magical, but in fact, it is not very useful. One reading Saint King said with certainty. Tang Jing sneered. The sky-swallowing technique possessed by the demon race was of little value, but that was because it was incomplete. After the mountain-moving realm, there was still the sea-moving realm and the heaven-swallowing realm. By chance, Tang Jing had obtained the core part of the sky-devouring technique from the Langyu Pavilion and cultivated the true sky-devouring technique. Of course, it was not the accumulated technique of the devil race. He retorted sarcastically, Saint King, do you look down on your own race's abilities so much? Hee hee, how ironic. Today, I will let you, the Saint King of the devil race, experience the true power of the devil race's divine ability. I will show you what the sky-swallowing technique is. How arrogant. If you were to use other methods, perhaps I might admire you. However, you're using the heaven-devouring technique. You're simply bringing disgrace upon yourself. You're nothing more than a joke. Saint King's sarcasm was indeed harsh, but it did not cause any ripples in Tang Jing's heart. He stepped on the void and strolled towards Mount Buzhou. Saint King did not stop him. He was calm and unruffled, as if he wanted to see him make a fool of himself. The other devils also started to mock him. Their insults were unbearable to the ears. Tang Jing was calm and collected. He completely ignored these insults and did not listen to a single word. At this time, he only had the sky-devouring technique in his mind. After accumulating power for a period of time, the power of the sky-devouring technique was pushed to the extreme. The 2 black holes started to sizzle, as if they were going to suck in everything around them, even the air. Tang Jing's surroundings almost became a vacuum. He held his breath and focused his mind. He stretched out his hands and held them horizontally in front of him, as if he was hugging a huge pillar. He stuck them to the side of Mount Buzhou. Blazing heat immediately transmitted up from below. His palms made sizzling sounds, as if his hands had turned into roasted meat. Tang Jing did not even blink. He took a deep breath and the power in his body surged out crazily. Then, the black holes in his palms stuck firmly to the mountain wall. Move the mountain, rise. A low roar, as if he had used up all his strength, burst out from Tang Jing's mouth. It was clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. Just by listening to this sound, one could feel the endless power contained in it. They could also feel that Tang Jing was using 100% of his strength this time. His cheeks were red and the veins on his forehead were visible. He held his breath and even every muscle was trembling. The devils still did not put Tang Jing in their eyes. Moving the mountain with human strength was really overestimating one's abilities. Even Saint King could not do this, let alone Tang Jing, who was weaker. The devils whispered to each other and pointed. They looked at Tang Jing as if they were looking at a joke. They only hoped that they would laugh heartily in a while. I really don't know how this kind of person survived. So stupid, simply stupid to the extreme. A devil disdainfully judged. Another devil deeply agreed and said, look at his appearance, he's about to suffocate to death. Hee hee, this is pushing himself into the fire pit, he can't blame anyone else. Yes, there are too many idiots in this world. The devil's gossip entered Tang Zhang's ears. It also entered Li Xiaotian and Lu Qingmei's ears. The two of them frowned at the same time and looked at Tang Zhang with burning eyes. Can he really do it? Such a big mountain. Isn't that too exaggerated? Lu Qingmei asked worriedly. Li Xiaotian muttered to himself for a while and said, "This is indeed a huge challenge. Whether he can succeed or not, I can't guess. However, with his character, he shouldn't be so rash as to do something useless. He definitely has a goal. Let's wait and see. We just need to believe in him." Although Li Xiaotian had lost his memories, his instinctive calmness and way of handling things were still better than Lu Qingmei's, so he couldn't help but comfort her. Lu Qingmei nodded lightly and looked at Tang Zhang with a trusting gaze. The devils were all thinking that Tang Zhang had gone crazy. Tang Zhang was very clear about his own abilities. When his hands were pressed against the mountain wall, boundless power surged out and firmly stuck to the mountain wall. "Rise!" Hearing his loud roar, Mount Buzhou began to shake. This wasn't because of the magma, but because of Tang Zhang. Saint King's mocking laughter came to an abrupt stop. His jaw almost fell to the ground as he looked at Mount Buzhou in disbelief. He rubbed his eyes, thinking that he was seeing things. Mount Buzhou was indeed shaking because of Tang Zhang. How is this possible? Mount Buzhou is indestructible. If Ancestor Qiyu hadn't thought of a way to use the magma to melt its foundation and completely overthrow it, how could Tang Zhang have shaken Mount Buzhou with just his hands? Waves of shock surged in his heart, wave after wave, difficult to calm down. This brat swore that he would use the sky-swallowing technique to move Mount Buzhou. Is this really the sky-swallowing technique? This is the devil race's technique. It's basically useless. How could it display such great power in his hands? Could it be that the sky-swallowing technique isn't as simple as we thought? Are the rumors true? When the sky-swallowing technique is cultivated to the extreme, can it really swallow the heavens and the earth? Saint King couldn't help but think of all the rumors about the sky-swallowing technique. It was just that no one believed these rumors. They snorted at them and thought that some bored person made them up. Now that he had seen Tang Zhang use the sky-swallowing technique with his own eyes, especially the two black holes in his palms, it was definitely the sky-swallowing technique and couldn't be faked. Saint King had mixed feelings. He really didn't know how to describe his feelings. He kept shaking his head like a rattledrum and muttered to himself, "No, this can't be true. I'm just scaring myself." Before he could finish, his words were stuck in his throat and he couldn't say another word. His eyes widened as he stared straight at Tang Zhang and Mount Buzhou. Boom! Mount Buzhou let out an earth-shattering sound. It shook violently and rose little by little. Tang Zhang's cheeks were red. He held his breath and there was only one thought left in his mind: move the mountain. Seeing Mount Buzhou slowly rise up in his hand, his eyes shone brightly, and his confidence was greatly boosted. The sky-swallowing technique was truly extraordinary. After reaching the realm of mountain moving, it could actually move a mountain. More importantly, this wasn't an ordinary mountain, but Mount Buzhou that contained divine power. But he didn't know that part of the reason he could move Mount Buzhou was actually thanks to the devil race. The magma had already eroded the foundation of Mount Buzhou. It was on the verge of collapse and was about to collapse. At this time, Tang Zhang used the sky-swallowing technique. Mount Buzhou's foundation couldn't withstand the power of the sky-swallowing technique and naturally rose from the ground. The bottom of Mount Buzhou rose up, creating a crack with the ground. The magma flowed through this crack without any obstruction. The melted part of Mount Buzhou was still dripping magma. When it was completely separated from the magma, the speed of the magma immediately slowed down. After a while, there was no more magma dripping from the bottom of Mount Buzhou. Tang Zhang stepped on the void and didn't feel steady. After he moved Mount Buzhou, his body swayed as if he was about to fall. This was because he couldn't support the weight of Mount Buzhou. Somersault cloud. He was quick-witted and immediately shouted. The somersault cloud immediately turned into a white cloud and flew under his feet to lift him up. When his feet stepped on the somersault cloud, it swayed slightly and sank slightly before rising little by little. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. If the somersault cloud couldn't support the weight of Mount Buzhou, then he would have failed to move the mountain. The ground was almost completely covered in magma and there was no place to stand. Therefore, he was in mid-air and had no place to borrow strength. It was impossible for him to complete the feat of moving the mountain alone. Fortunately, the somersault cloud allowed him to stand on solid ground and offset the weight of Mount Buzhou. Somersault cloud, good job. Tang Zheng praised. Somersault cloud, fly to the left. He gritted his teeth and moved the mountain. He couldn't hold on for too long. Otherwise, it would be a huge challenge for him to continuously expend his energy. He had to end this quickly. The somersault cloud carried Tang Zheng while Tang Zheng hugged Mount Buzhou and flew to the left. Once he flew out of the magma area, he could put Mount Buzhou down. Chapter 1286. The people of the demon clan finally regained their senses from the huge shock, and looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated gaze. Shock, and an indescribable jealousy, 100 different feelings lingered in their hearts. Saint King's pupils were round, and he was furious. He thought that it would be easy and there would be no more problems. He never thought that Tang Zheng would have this ability to move Mount Buzhou. This was truly a frightening time that had never been heard of before. The other demon clans were almost scared away by Tang Zheng's mountain-pulling aura. Fortunately, there was a holy lord overseeing the situation, so they didn't have to run away. Not to mention the demons, even the inner demons smacked their lips and clicked their tongues in wonder. The sky-swallowing technique has such power. I really underestimated it before. Young man, you really keep creating miracles for people. It's an eye-opener. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. This was purely a blind cat running into a dead mouse. He thought that he would not have the opportunity to practice the mountain-moving technique. He did not expect that he would really use it today. Heaven's will. Stop him, we must not let him succeed. Saint King's roar interrupted Tang Zheng's thoughts. Saint King stretched out his arm and pointed at Tang Zheng from afar. He was hysterical, and his face was ferocious, like a demon from hell. Tang Zheng was stunned. He had no time to be distracted. Facing the storm-like attacks of the demons, he did not even have the chance to defend. Don't worry, I will protect you. Li Xiaotian seemed to have a telepathic connection. He saw through Tang Zheng's thoughts and said without hesitation. I will protect you too. Lu Qingmei stood up without a care for her own safety. The two stood on the somersault cloud in front of Tang Zheng to protect him. Their eyes were resolute, and they looked at the swarming demon army without a trace of fear. Two little dolls, don't overestimate yourselves. You are seeking death. Saint King glanced at the two disdainfully. He did not take them seriously at all. Whoosh! Two sounds of something breaking through the air could be heard as the two of them took the initiative to launch the dragon-trapping rope and arrows at the same time, heading straight for the demons. Petty tricks. Saint King gently flicked his finger in the air, and the air was immediately split into two halves. Like a tide, the two halves engulfed the dragon-trapping rope and the bow and arrows, and quickly fell downward. You want it? Read a book. Gulp. The bow and arrow fell into the lava and disappeared without a trace. Seeing that the dragon-trapping rope was about to follow suit, Lu Qingmei's face turned red all the way to her neck. She urged all her power to try and stop everything. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood. He had consumed too much of his mental and spiritual power. However, she still managed to prevent the magic weapon from falling into the lava, and managed to retrieve the dragon trapping rope. Her expression immediately became dispirited. Li Xiaotian saw her condition and quickly comforted her. "You rest first, I'll deal with them." Whoosh! Whoosh! With that said, 3 arrows left the bowstring and shot towards the demons in a triangle shape. However, how could this ordinary bow and arrow hurt the demons? The demons gently grabbed the arrowhead and broke it into 2. The demons were already in front of them. If they did not have any effective counterattacks, then they would be in complete danger. Tang Zheng had been paying attention to the battle the entire time. Seeing this scene, how could he not understand the danger of the situation? Seeing Li Xiaotian continuously shooting arrows, the sword pot was already empty, and all the arrows had been used up. Sun shooting arrow, heaven shocking bow, go and help her. Li Xiaotian, catch. Tang Zheng moved his head, and the heaven shocking bow and the sun shooting arrow appeared out of thin air, flying in front of Li Xiaotian. Li Xiaotian was startled, seeing the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow floating in front of him. His eyes lit up, and he was wild with joy. She was very clear about the power of this divine armament. Although she had lost her memories, she instinctively wanted to possess this kind of divine armament. However, divine armament could only be found by chance. Now that she finally had the chance to use a divine armament, her mood could be imagined. He quickly suppressed the joy in his heart, drew his bow and aimed at the demons. Buzz! Her fingers loosened, and the power of the bowstring was clearly transmitted to her hand. Even her soul was trembling, and her muscles were trembling. She was too excited. This is a bow and arrow, this is a divine armament. If I can use this divine armament once in my life, I can die without regrets. You want to see? Book. Li Xiaotian's face flushed red, she was extremely excited. Previously, even when facing the powerful attacks of the demons, her expression did not change. Now that she had used the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow once, it was difficult for her to hide her emotions. In the end, she was the same as Wu. Deep in her heart, she had an obsession towards martial arts. He was a martial artist, so he could not use all sorts of magic treasure. However, the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow were not simple magic treasure. Back then, the owner of this divine armament, Ho-E, was not a cultivator, but a martial artist. Activating this divine armament did not necessarily require the genuine qi, the martial artist's inner strength was also possible. Moreover, because Tang Zheng was a cultivator, he was unable to completely fuse with this divine armament, nor was he able to cultivate the corresponding archery technique that was compatible with this divine armament. This caused Tang Zheng to not be able to unleash its full power when he used this divine armament, even though its power was not weak. One had to know that back then, Ho-E had used them to shoot down the sun, the golden crow. Back then, Li Xiaotian also knew that this divine armament could be freely used by martial warriors, which was why he traveled thousands of miles to the 10,000 huge mountains to search for its whereabouts. However, she had never truly tried the feeling of combining the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow together. Now that he had finally gotten what he wanted, his mind was naturally excited. This was a kind of infatuation that went deep into her bones. Even if she lost her memories, this infatuation did not change. She understood that this was a rare opportunity, so she did not care about her own safety and opened the bow again. When the first sun-shooting arrow pierced through the chest of a demon, the second sun-shooting arrow also flew out. To Li Xiaotian, using this kind of divine armament was a very exhausting thing, but her surging emotions and outstanding willpower had been supporting her, so she did not collapse for the time being. The second arrow was aimed at Saint King. Seeing the sun-shooting arrow whistling towards him, Saint King did not take it to heart at all, and said disdainfully, "Do you think that the divine armament in anyone's hands will have great power? You overestimate yourself." Saint King did not even put Tangjing in his eyes, so how could he look up to Li Xiaotian? When the sun-shooting arrow was in front of him, he gently flicked his finger, trying to push the sun-shooting arrow away. However, bang! A huge force came from the arrowhead and pierced into Saint King's finger. With a "pof" sound, his finger was almost broken. The intense pain caused Saint King's heart to tremble, and he immediately took a step to the side, dodging the sun-shooting arrow. Pof! The sun-shooting arrow once again shot through the chest of a demon, exploding with a dazzling flower of blood. Saint King turned his head slightly, and when he saw his subordinate falling from the sky, he was so angry that it almost jumped out from his head. "Little girl, you are not worthy of possessing such a divine armament." Saint King stared at the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow with a burning gaze, his eyes bursting with greed. He had experienced its power, so he naturally wanted to take it for himself. This was a divine armament that was not inferior to, or even more powerful than, his own heaven-splitting axe. If he had it, his fighting strength would rise to a whole new level. Tang Zheng's mind was completely focused on Mount Buzhou. The heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow were equivalent to ownerless items, so Saint King had a better chance of snatching them away. When Saint King thought about it, his heart couldn't help but surge. Heaven-splitting axe, chop her down. Saint King waved his hand, and the heaven-splitting axe's light shone brightly. In an instant, it turned into a gigantic axe that reached the heavens. The light interweaved together, and along with the Saint King's posture, the heaven-splitting axe chopped down. Although it was still a distance away from the somersault cloud, the heaven-splitting axe's light still accurately struck in front of Li Xiaotian. Lu Qingmei, who was standing beside her, was also enveloped and locked onto by this aura. Her kneecaps cracked, as if she was about to be forced to kneel down by this force. But she gritted her teeth and withstood it with difficulty. As the target of the attack, Li Xiaotian felt even worse, but she still gritted her teeth and shot out 3 arrows. The 3 sun-shooting arrows flew in front and behind, one in the lead, and the other 2 at the back. Their power overlapped with each other, and they flew in front of the heaven-splitting axe one after another. Pof! The sun-shooting arrow at the front hit the light. The light trembled for a moment, but did not disintegrate. Puff puff. 2 more sounds rang out at the same time. This time, the sun-shooting arrow's power overlapped with that of the previous arrow, and a thin line appeared on the light. Crack! A large piece of the light shattered, and the power of the heaven-splitting axe's attack was greatly reduced. Phew! Li Xiaotian let out a heavy breath. Her entire body went soft and she was on the verge of collapse. She was almost completely exhausted, and shooting 3 arrows at once was her limit. This was far more exhausting than using other bows and arrows. Careful! Lu Qingmei's eyes were sharp, and her hands were quick. She hurriedly supported her, preventing her from falling. How are you? Li Xiaotian's face was pale without a trace of blood. Her eyelids were heavy, as if there were weights hanging on them, and they were about to droop down. Li Xiaotian was gasping for breath. She forced out a smile and said, "Don't worry, I won't die." Between her eyebrows, there was a trace of seductiveness and laziness. It actually had a kind of soul-stirring charm. If a man saw this scene, he would definitely feel as if he was struck by lightning and couldn't help but want to hold her in his arms and take good care of her. Tang Jing happened to see this scene from the corner of his eyes. His eyes were stunned, and a complicated expression flashed past his face. For my sake, Li Xiaotian disregarded the danger of her life, this. He had mixed feelings, and the last trace of vigilance he had towards Li Xiaotian vanished like smoke in thin air, vanishing without a trace. If not for her, I would not have been able to obtain the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow. She has always been thinking about this divine armament, but she never had the chance. The true power of the heaven-shocking bow and the sun-shooting arrow has not been fully unleashed in my hands, and I cannot cultivate the matching set of archery techniques either. It would be better to teach it to her and fulfill her dream. He took a deep breath and finally made his decision. He shouted weakly, "Li Xiaotian, come to me quickly." Li Xiaotian suddenly raised her head and looked at him suspiciously, but she still dragged her heavy steps and walked to Tang Zhang's side. "What's the matter?" she asked curiously.